Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are
above replacement radio.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. It is our penultimate off-season show, or perhaps our final off-season show, depending on your opinions of the Tokyo series. We are just a couple of days away from that, the first official games of the season, but the real thing is in 11 days from our recording time. And today we are finishing up. We're wrapping up. It's a podcast of wrapping stuff up for sure, because it is our final division preview and it is our top 10 players in Major League Baseball going into 2025.
Yeah, it wraps everything up in terms of previewing stuff outside of predictions and whatnot. But I would venture to suggest that some of this does serve as a prelude into those predictions.
Yes.
If we're ranking someone higher than we would have ranked someone else, that might explain why we have a team above another team. So I think it all flows into each other. But yeah, we are doing the National League Central today. We've done all of the other 5 divisions, so be sure to check out the previous 5 episodes before episode 350, where we previewed all the other divisions. But today is the NL Central. Anything before we want to get into the division?
No, let's just get right into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we start from, if you don't know what we do, we start from bottom to top. We go through kind of where they stand, additions, subtractions, and we specifically highlight one player, maybe under the radar, maybe not on any top 100 lists, that maybe you should look out for this year. And then we also ask each other a question to end each team. But we start with the bottom. So we are starting this episode with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who went 76-86 and finished last in the National League Central. I think that was actually the best last place record in baseball, if I'm not mistaken. They lost Luis Ortiz, Aroldis Chapman, Connor Joe, Yasmani Grandal, Marco Gonzalez, and Jalen Beeks, and they added Spencer Horwitz, Adam Frazier, Tommy Pham, DJ Stewart, and Caleb Ferguson. Who is your Pirates player to watch?
Yeah, so last year I picked Nick Gonzalez as my Pirates player to watch, and I even said, I don't feel too confident in this one. It was tough for me to find a guy, and Nick Gonzalez actually ended up working out quite well, had a solid season for himself. And I kind of had the same assessment going into this year, where there was no one here I was too thrilled on. I went with, I think, kind of a basic pick, but I knew that I wanted to highlight this guy in some capacity when we thought he was going to be playing for a different team earlier in the offseason. I'm talking about Spencer Horwitz, who is the first addition that you mentioned. Obviously, he was acquired in a trade earlier this year with the Guardians, not with the Blue Jays, because he was traded twice in a day. Traded for Luis Ortiz, as well as a few others, but that was kind of the highlight of that trade. And he had some interesting time with the Blue Jays last year. He slashed 256, 357, 433 for a 790 OPS in 381 plate appearances. So wasn't above average third baseman, had some, started out very hot, got a little bit cooler as the season went down, but, landed on some pretty solid numbers and, a little bit of stability at the first base position. One thing that I am quite excited about, he did post a 118 TOPS plus on the road last year, which means he was 18% better out on the road than his own average. An 862 OPS on the road in 196 plate appearances. So Toronto actually could have some benefits for him. He hit better in the United States, so maybe staying in in the Steel City will do him some good. Between 2023 to 24, his four-seam fastball percentage rose from 24.9% to 32.6%. And last year he hit 316 and slugged 516 for a 1.3 run value per 100 against all four-seamers throughout the year. So they threw him a lot more of them and he hit them quite well. In terms of breaking balls, he also 50 and slugged 900 for a 4.9 run value per 100 against curveballs, which was the eighth highest among that run value per 100 was the eighth highest among the 430 hitters with at least 10 plate appearances ending against curveballs. Spencer Horwitz last year joined Ryan McMahon and Ha-Sung Kim as the only qualifying hitters in 2024 to rank in the 75th percentile or higher in sweet spot rate, walk rate, and outs above average. He was actually playing quite a solid defensive first base. And really a lot of the, I mean, I knew I wanted to highlight him in some capacity, but with this specific team, the Pirates have had very poor production out of the first base position since really the start of the decade. You know, Josh Bell was an all-star in 2019, but ever since then, it's been a rotating door of, Bell post, first half of 2019, Will Craig, Adam Frazier, even for some time, who's ironically back again, Carlos Santana for half a year, who was decent, but overall, it's just been quite a struggle. They have negative 2.4 wins above replacement from their first baseman since 2020. So my goal for Spencer Horwitz this year to be a 2.5 win player, because that would set Pirates first baseman above replacement for the 2020s decade. I think he's probably going to get out to a slow start. He's battling a wrist injury right now and probably isn't going to be ready for opening day. So I would probably expect a slow start from him when he comes back. But I think as the season goes on, if he can balance everything out and land himself on 2.5 FWAR, I think that's a successful season and the best stability we've seen at first base for the Pirates in a while. So I'm taking Spencer Horwitz as my player to watch.
Yeah, Spencer Horwitz had quite the journey this offseason. Lands in Pittsburgh and could end up being pretty productive for them. My player to watch is, I believe, one of my how about that's, and I think this guy checked the last team off the list, which was the Pirates last year, because he ended the year really, really well. I'm talking about relief pitcher Dennis Santana, who in his final 33 appearances of 2024 put up a 1.15 ERA, 2.01 FIP, and 26% strikeout minus walk rate. Out of 182 qualified relievers in that span, he ranked 4th in ERA, 13th in FIP, 21st in strikeout minus walk rate, and 6th in home runs per nine. Excellent in kind of all components there. Out of 233 pitchers with 500 plus pitches in that span, his expected slugging against ranked 14th, and his expected WOBA against ranked 11th. So around top 5% for both. And he also in that span had an 84.3 mile per hour average exit velocity and 2.2% barrel rate against. Out of 233 pitchers, his average exit velocity against was second lowest, and his barrel rate against was fifth lowest. Dennis Santana had a wonderful end to the year. I think will be relied upon a lot more in the Pirates bullpen, given that they know what he can do. I think he was a midseason acquisition for them. I think he was kind of left off.
He definitely was.
Yeah, he was like claimed off waivers or was in a trade or something, but he had a rough start to the year, and his ERA as a whole was actually 3.89, which is surprising considering he ended with a 1.15 in the final 33 appearances. So I think just the goal for him this year would be to put it all together over one season, put up a sub-3 ERA and 60 plus innings pitched in 2025. On to questions.
Yeah, my question revolves around kind of the face of this franchise right now. The first name that comes to mind when you think about the Pittsburgh Pirates embarking on his first full season in the big leagues. Will Paul Skeens pitch over or under 179 and a half innings this year?
Over under 179 and a half. That's a good question.
He's in the NL, so he doesn't apply to your bold prediction of no American League pitcher reaching 180 innings. So this one is a little bit more up to interpretation.
Yeah. By the way, those bold predictions might be contradicted heavily in my in the next episode.
That's all right.
But yeah, so So yeah, 179 and a half. So he pitched 133 last year, and he had 23 starts. So I'm doing the calculations. 5.8 innings per start. So 5.8 times 30 would be 174. But I could easily see him. I could easily see him making more innings per start. I know he was cut short in maybe one or two. I know his last start he only pitched 2 innings, and that was purposeful on the Pirates' part. Um, but uh, but yeah, just considering, how pitchers work in the modern age, and also the fact that he's only, I think, 23, and the
Mm.
Pirates really, really value him. And it's not necessarily, you know, I don't know if the Pirates are going to be, in a late push at the end of the year. So I'm going to say under on Paul Skeens, but it's really just for innings. In terms of the rest of his performance, I see
Yeah,
some really good things for him.
not a
Um,
knock on him at all.
yeah, yeah. So my question um, revolves around perhaps maybe their most prized position player at the current moment. Last year, O'Neal Cruz had a 2020 season. Will he get to 25-25 this year?
O'Neal Cruz. So last year they moved him to center field towards the end of the year, and this could be a just an end of season thing, a change of position thing. But he did regress a bit offensively. He went from he had a 798 OPS at shortstop and a 701 OPS as a center fielder. So I have no idea. I don't really want to know if the positional change will make any difference. It was only a 23 game sample at the end of last year. But 25-25, I think just the more he plays, there's a very clear chance that he's capable of getting to it if you give him 150 games. It just, you can never really fully know if a guy will do that or not. And O'Neal Cruz did uh, do it last year, or it came close to it. He played 146. So I say he does it. Why not? I mean, I think, yeah, if you put him out there enough, he'll find a way to do it. I think there's like he's got to break out at some point. It's got to happen to where he can put up like a 130 OPS plus season or something like that. And I think he's got the skills to do it. It's just, putting it all together, doing some of those little things where, working on timing, working on contact, things like that. But I do think he can do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
And I think he will do it.
yeah, yeah,
I guess it's not very definitive saying he's capable of it,
right,
because I think we've
right.
known that for a very long time. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah, exactly. So so yeah, on to the fourth place team from last year, the Cincinnati Reds, who went 77 and 85 and finished fourth in the National League Central. They lost Jonathan India, Jacob Junis, Ty France, and Fernando Cruz, and they added Brady Singer, Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes, Jose Trevino, Wade Miley, Scott Barlow, and Josh Stumont. And we'll start with my Reds player to watch, who I think has been highlighted uh, on these previews before, talking about Nick Lodolo, um, in that left-handed starting pitcher Nick Lodolo. He was a popular breakout candidate heading into the 2023 season because he put up some impressive underlying things in 2022, like a very high strikeout rate, not too high of a walk rate, and looked really good. However, injuries have gotten in the way for him a little bit. He only made 7 starts in 2023, and then he only made 21 last year. But in those 21 starts, he threw 115 innings, put up a 4.76 ERA, 92 ERA plus, but also a 3.95 FIP and 3.72 expected ERA. Despite below average run prevention, his expected ERA was in the 60th percentile, and FIP was better than league average. His strikeout minus walk rate was 3 percentage points above league average, and his whiff rate was in the 70th percentile in baseball. So I think last year Lodolo kind of got his footing under him a little bit, or footing back under him a little bit after only making 7 starts in 2023. And I think with some, better luck, he could be a pretty productive pitcher for them. So my goal would be for him to have a 110 ERA plus in 140 or more innings pitched. Who's your Reds player to watch?
Yeah, we are actually doubling up on this one. And you were right. He has been highlighted in this before. He was my 2023 Reds player to watch. as you kind of mentioned there, and he is my 2025 Reds player to watch. I still believe in a potential, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a breakout or not at this point, but I guess a big level up year from Nick Lodolo. There's a lot that I really like about him. You obviously touched on the strikeout rate and things like that. I actually like how you highlighted him because a lot of my stuff very specifically dives into his pitch movements and the uniqueness and his shape and his the design of his pitches. Because I think that's something that in a hitter's paradise is almost something you need if you're a starter and you're pitching a lot of innings and you also have a high fly ball rate. Last year, Nick Lodolo threw 477 pitches at 94 plus miles per hour with at least 15 inches of arm side movement at an arm angle at or below 20 degrees. Now, I'm saying this, I know that's a lot of information to take in, but a lot of pitchers, especially hard throwing pitchers, you typically see a more over the top sort of delivery from guys with a lot of velocity. Think Justin Verlander as one, major example. There's plenty of others as well, but Lodolo has quite a low arm angle, especially for a lefty. And despite that, is able to get a lot of velocity, able to get a lot of arm side movement. Now, like I mentioned, 477 pitches with at least 94 miles an hour, 15 inches of arm side movements, arm angle at or below 20 degrees. That's the third most of any pitcher in baseball last year. Lodolo increased the usage on his sinker last year by more than 100%. He doubled the use of it. I believe it went from 14% to 28% or something like that. And he made it his most commonly used pitch in 2024. 65.2% of the sinkers that he threw last year recorded over 18 inches of arm side movement, which was the highest rate among the 163 pitchers with at least 250 sinkers thrown. Additionally, 70.4% of his four-seam fastballs had at least 16 inches of arm side movement, and once again, the highest rate of the 274 pitchers with at least 300 four-seamers thrown. No other pitcher had 16 inches of arm side movement on at least 48.3% of their four-seamers, and he was at 70.4%. So it's moving like nobody else, which is pretty fun. 37.6% of his changeups recorded 33 inches of downward movement and 18 inches of arm side movement, second only to Christopher Sanchez among the 76 pitchers with at least 300 changeups thrown. Why am I telling you this? Well, I think pitch movement is very important, and I would like to add a little anecdote. I had one player to watch last year where a lot of my analysis was very specifically touching on their pitch movements. And that was Christopher Sanchez, who was my number one hit last year. He was an all-star, a top 10 pitcher via FWAR, someone I just mentioned in this segment. And I think I see a lot of that out of Nick Lodolo, but instead of, being a sinker slider guy, he's a sinker four-seam guy. So I'm very interested in seeing what he can do in a full season. I would like to see 150 plus innings pitched and an xFIP below 3.5. That obviously takes into account Cincinnati. It kind of takes out the ballpark factor a little bit and focuses more on him. I want to see what he can do. So that is my analysis on Nick Lodolo, player to watch part 2.
Yeah. Would love to see some success, especially after some of the fun things we saw out of him in 2022. On to questions. My question revolves around two players, part of kind of the youth movement in Cincinnati, but did not have the greatest impressions last year. Who will have the better bounce back season, Christian Encarnacion Strand or Noelvi Marte?
Yes, so Encarnacion Strand battled injury for most of the year. Noelvi Marte was suspended, came back. Both of them struggled, I think, for pretty much the entire year, right? If I'm remembering correctly, yeah, Noelvi Marte had a 49 weighted runs created plus. I still really liked what I saw out of 2023 CES. I mean, there's a reason I put him as my player to watch last year. He was a guy I talked about as a potential 30 to 35 home run hitter. So I'm gonna keep him as the answer there. I mean, still 13 home runs and 241 plate appearances in 2023. Like that's on pace for about 27 and 500 plate appearances, and that's who knows what that is, and who knows what that looks like if you see 550, if you see 600. So I'm gonna keep CES as my answer to that one. My question to you, this is a bit of a weird one, but last year Elly De La Cruz stole 67 bases And a newly acquired reliever, Taylor Rogers, had 64 strikeouts. So will there be more Ellie De La Cruz stolen bases or Taylor Rogers strikeouts?
That is a good question for sure. It makes me curious about some of the underlying things there. Um, Taylor Rogers, he's heading into his age 34 season. Um, he was 71st percentile in strikeout rate, but only 32nd percentile in whiff rate. Even as someone who doesn't necessarily dominate the zone, so maybe there is um some sort of thing there. And along with Ellie De La Cruz stealing 67 bases, I think he attempted 83. So, he puts in the volume, like whether he's never going to be shy to unless he makes a change in approach, he's never going to be shy to attempt go for that extra base on the bases. Um, so I'll go with Ellie De La Cruz based on some of the lack of correlation in Taylor Rogers' strikeout rate and whiff rate, and then also just Ellie's young. I expect him to get on base at around the same rate this year, and I wouldn't expect him to be less aggressive on the base paths this year. So I'll take Ellie De La Cruz. Um, Now on to the Cubs because that's where
I don't think so.
the baseball reference when you go on
Oh,
the
they had the same record
teams,
last year.
yeah,
Baseball
the
Reference has Cardinals over Cubs for me.
yeah,
Or
same
excuse me,
thing.
Cubs over Cardinals. They have the Cubs in second for me.
Um,
What was the
oh, it's
old
on the
what was
front
the old head to
page.
head?
Oh, well, on the front, well, if I go to the teams tab,
I
the
got I got Cubs Cardinals.
but if you go to the menu with the where it says teams and you just hover over that,
Yeah.
it's Cardinals over Cubs
Oh,
for
I
me.
got Cubs over Cardinals.
Interesting. Well,
Uh well, the Cardinals won the season series, so we'll go Cubs first.
yeah, we'll go Cubs.
All right.
Sounds good. Even though I see very
It's
different futures for them this
yeah,
year.
yeah, right. Yeah.
But with the Cubs, they went 83 and 79 and finished third or second in the NL Central, depending on which way the wind blows. But they lost Cody Bellinger, Isak Paredes, Drew Smiley, Mike Talkman, Hayden Wesneski, Jorge Lopez, Adbert Alzolay, Matt Mervis, Kyle Hendricks, Nick Madrigal, and Patrick Wisdom. And they added Kyle Tucker, Matthew Boyd, Ryan Presley, Justin Turner, uh, John Birdie, Nicky Lopez, Chris Flexen, Ryan Brazier, and Travis Jankowski.
Yeah.
Who's your Cubs player to watch?
Very quietly loud offseason, if that makes any sense. I mean, I know that they had a couple big moves, especially the Tucker one, and that was a pretty big trade on both sides. But yeah, very interesting offseason from the Cubs. My player to watch is one of those additions. It's obviously not Kyle Tucker. It's not Ryan Presley either, but it is Matthew Boyd, who I thought looked pretty interesting for the Guardians last year, both in the regular season and the postseason. But in the regular season, he pitched 39 and two-thirds innings, posted a 2.72 ERA, a 3.29 FIP, and a 3.10 expected ERA. His strikeout rate last year was at a nice 27.7%, which was his highest since 2019. Opponents posted a 25.5% fly ball rate against Boyd last year, but only 16.1% of the fly balls against him were pulled, which is a career low and the fifth lowest among the 116 pitchers with at least 25 fly balls between August 13th through the end of the season, which is when Boyd was on the mound. I say this because the league average for pull rate on fly balls is 26%. So the fact that Boyd's is at 16%, that's 10% below the league average. That kept a lot of balls in the park. Whether it's in Cleveland, whether it's in Wrigley or any away park, that's something that's going to be very crucial for converting fly balls into cans of corn rather than balls that go into the seats. Boyd chopped the usage, or excuse me, he upped the usage on his changeup from 18.7% to 26.2% between 2023 and 24, a pitch that he threw majority of the time to righties. And his changeup last year produced a 35.2% whiff rate, an 84.2 mile per hour average exit velocity against as well. He did, however, drop the usage on his slider, which I'm very curious to see if the Cubs continue this or not, because the slider, at 17.3% use, produced a 148 batting average against, a 124 expected batting average, 222 slugging, 146 expected slugging, a 44.9% whiff rate, and an 82 mph average exit velocity against. So both of his two main secondaries were very solid pitches in terms of getting a lot of whiffs and weak contact. He did a lot of that on both of those. So I'm interested to see how the Cubs decide to handle his arsenal this year. Additionally, his 10.5% pop-up rate was the highest it's been for him since 2019. And the 20.7% pop-up rate against his four-seamer, his most commonly used pitched, was the fifth highest among the 144 pitchers with at least 25 batted balls allowed against four-seamers from August 13 on. So I think Matthew Boyd kind of fits the Cubs' MO in terms of what they seek in starting pitchers. They like these guys that are like sort of crafty lefties, although he can, get a lot of swing and miss and, be quite deceptive. I would love to see him put up 120 innings and be an above average pitcher. Just give me a 100 ERA plus. I think that's, I think he's more there for the potential of innings than the effectiveness, but I think he's very capable of both.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a important addition to that rotation. On to my player to watch, who I'll preface by saying I don't necessarily expect better results from him in 2025, but I expect him to have a larger role. And I'm talking about relief pitcher Porter Hodge, who is heading into his age 24 season. He pitched his first MLB season last year and put up a 1.88 ERA, 213 ERA plus, 275 FIP, 263 expected ERA, and 32% strikeout rate in 43 innings pitched. Out of 203 relievers to throw 40 plus innings last year, he ranked 12th in ERA, 18th in home runs per nine, 21st in strikeout rate, and 26th in FIP. Out of 473 pitchers to throw 500 plus pitches last year, Hodge had the 8th lowest expected batting average against and the 6th lowest expected slugging against, which is top 2% for both on the expected front. His home runs per nine was 0.4, partially because he only allowed 3 barrels and a 3.3% barrel rate. Out of 473 pitchers, his barrel rate ranked 12th. And moving on to, I guess, his arsenal, his four-seam fastball averages 95.5 miles per hour, which was good for 73rd percentile in baseball. However, that comes with 7.3 feet of extension, which is in the 97th percentile in baseball. So 73rd percentile velocity, but 97th percentile extension. That extension gave his four-seam fastball a 97.5 mile per hour perceived velocity. So his perceived velocity was 2 miles per hour above his actual, or the actual velocity out of the hand, because of that extension that I talked about. Yet, despite this disparity in actual velocity and perceived velocity on his fastball, his best pitch last year was his sweeper, which he used 38% of the time last year. Batters hit 070 against it and slugged 105, while managing only an 82.8 mile per hour average exit velocity against it, along with a 52% whiff rate against it. Among the 84 pitchers to throw 200 plus sweepers last year, Hodge had the highest whiff rate against it. It also had the highest run value per 100 and the highest overall run value among all sweepers last year, regardless of minimums. So
Nice.
a wonderful fastball and a wonderful sweeper from him, and that's part of the reason why I was able to get a 32% strikeout rate. I mentioned that I don't expect him to have better results, but a larger role. He had a 1.88 ERA last year. That would be hard to surpass, for any reliever, no matter how good you are. So my goal for him is to be the Cubs closer by August 15. I think Ryan Presley is going to start out in that role, but I don't think he keeps it necessarily, because I think Porter Hodge is going to significantly outperform him, and especially with the Cubs probably looking to claim a playoff spot and a division spot. I think they will, go to their best guy and not worry about the implications of anything there, and put Porter Hodge in that ninth inning role, because I think he will end up being the best reliever in that bullpen this year. So Porter Hodge is my player to watch. On to on to questions.
Yes, so the construction of the Cubs outfield was kind of a major focal point for Jed Hoyer and company this offseason. As of right now, you're looking at, Ian Happ in left, Pete Crow Armstrong playing a larger role this year in center, and then, of course, Kyle Tucker coming into play right with Seiya Suzuki as the DH. So, buy or sell, the Cubs will lead the majors in outfielder F WAR. They ranked fifth last year.
Ooh, that is a good question. Because I'm sure the Yankees led last year, but now they
The
don't have
Yankees led.
Soto.
I believe the Red Sox were above them. I believe the Padres were above them. I don't remember who else.
Um, Looking in at positional split. Oh, I forgot to switch to team stats. On to team stats. Yeah, Cubs fifth. So it went Yankees, Red Sox, Padres, Brewers, Cubs. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I do see, Kyle Tucker is obviously going to bring a major upgrade to them. Um, in terms of WAR, I would imagine he gets 3 to 4 wins above replacement more than Bellinger did last year. Um, so that will certainly take them up. I think Pete Crow Armstrong gets more than he had last year. I think Ian Happ will probably get the same exact amount of F wars he did last year.
And
So
the year before that, and the year before that.
exactly. And then Seiya Suzuki, even like this stat considers just as an outfield split. So I don't think he'll have as good of a year, but he'll be a DH. So I think, yeah, I mean that's a good question. Because with the Yankees, they had 18.2, but 8.1 of that came from Soto. Um, and Boston, uh, yeah, I'm just looking, I'm scoping out the competition. Tatis and Merrill are definitely going to be tough to beat, but their left field spot is not great.
Mhm.
But let me think.
Milwaukee's tough with Yelich and Chorio.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And like Mitchell as well, I
Well,
think.
Yelich might play more DH this year,
That
so
is a
there's
good
that.
point. You're right.
Um, so I'm I'm gonna say the Cubs do it. I'm gonna say they
All
do it.
right.
I
Yeah,
like
he's
the
buying it.
I like the upside because, Tucker's obviously a great addition and they were, the fact that they were able to be fifth without Kyle Tucker last year, it shows their potential. And I think, with the Yankees were far and away the best, but, losing Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger isn't going to make up for all that. So, um, and Jason Dominguez won't either. So yeah, I'm gonna say the Cubs do it. Why not?
Right.
On to my question, uh, with and yeah, this is similar to my Giants question because I think there might be a clear one. Who will rank top two for the Cubs in batting run value?
Yeah, batting run value. So yeah, I'm obviously gonna put Tucker number one,
Yeah.
clearly. So just looking around the diamond, you got what, Miguel Amaya catching. I'm gonna go ahead and give that one a no. Michael Bush at first base, Nico Horner at second, Dansby Swanson at short, possibly Matt Shaw at third. He is going to Tokyo. I guess we'll see if he's the full-time third baseman. I would imagine he's going to be at some point, and then we obviously just mentioned everybody else. So yeah, Tucker will be number one. I think it's between Happ and Suzuki for number two. But I didn't think what are say Suzuki's splits between DH and outfield? Like, did he DH a lot last year? Was he good as a DH? Was he better as an outfielder? What was that? What was that looking like?
I'm not entirely
I
sure
am
on
looking
that.
at it right now. As a left fielder, okay, as a right fielder where he played 72 games, he had an 825 OPS as a DH. He had 59 games played and an 846 OPS, so relatively similar in both roles. I will say Seiya Suzuki as
All
the
right.
number two.
Yeah. Yeah. That that works. So on to our next team, the St. Louis Cardinals. They also went 83 and 79, tied with the Cubs, but based on certain metrics, they may have finished second in the National League Central last year. They lost Paul Goldschmidt, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Andrew Kittredge, and Matt Carpenter, and they added Nick Anderson, which is
And Phil
wonderful.
Maton.
Oh, they added Phil May. Oh yeah, that was this past week, right?
Yep.
Right.
I was really hoping we would get to, and they added nobody because
Yeah,
this is
no,
the
we.
closest, probably the closest we've ever come to that, right? I mean, they literally, like
I
Nick
think we got.
Anderson, was that even a major league deal? I don't think so.
Um, no, it wasn't a major league deal,
No,
but it's a
the
name.
first major league acquisition they made this offseason was Phil Maton, like Tuesday of last week or whatever it was.
We might have had the we might have had an added no one significant with the Twins. I'm looking back at the yeah.
That's a good point.
Twins, I said added no one significant, but that was on February 9th, so maybe they did add somebody significant since then, but I
I
doubt it.
don't remember.
I don't
Okay, fair
remember it
point.
either.
The Twins did add no one significant. You're so right about that. Let me check.
Yeah.
Um, the Twins. No, I don't need to see all transactions. I'm talking about additions. And I'm not talking about, okay,
And then
free
the
agents.
Tigers lost no one significant, so that was a cool one. It's like, oh,
Okay,
they're they're not really losing anybody. That's cool. Good for
40
them.
man roster. Yeah, no, they lost Alex Kirilloff to retirement. That's kind of it.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
okay, fair. The Twins.
yeah, shout out to the Twins. Um,
Shout out to the Pollards and the TV deal fallout. And
yeah.
yeah, really no additions. Because Ty France this year? Was he on the team? He was
Oh
on the Reds
yeah.
last year.
Oh yeah, I guess he was an addition. I guess I
Yeah.
forgot about that, but I don't know when he
Uh,
signed. If it was past February 9th, then it's not on me. But if it
I don't remember when it was.
um you know what? That does make me curious.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
February
February
15th.
15th.
I'm in the
Yeah,
clear.
so
I'm in the clear.
Chris beat the allegations.
I can continue as host of Above Replacement Radio. Um,
Yeah.
but
We did not miss on the Twins adding Ty France, a move that everyone remembers. Oh, they also did add Harrison Bader. When did that happen?
yeah, it's like a where were you type moment when the Twins signed Ty
Are you
France.
serious? I type in Twins sign Harrison Bader and I get Harrison Bader's zodiac sign. Unfortunately, that was February 7th.
Well, it probably wasn't. It said agree to contract, so it probably wasn't official. And it
Yeah.
didn't. It didn't hit the
Yeah,
baseball reference
we're not counting
transactions
it.
list. Nope. The ARR council determines I'm in the clear again. Um, but back to the St. Louis Cardinals. My player to watch is someone who's not played a major league game yet, but I see
Not.
him making some sort of
Is this your
impact.
first one for this year?
That's a good question.
Because
Maybe.
you usually have like one every year.
Yeah,
I
it's
had
a
one.
possibility. I once had a big swing and miss on one of these, um, but yeah, they're fun to do. But I'm talking about Quinn Matthews.
Hmm.
He is a left-handed pitcher that was drafted by the Cardinals in the fourth round of the 2023 Major League Draft. And he is currently ranked the number 45 prospect in baseball by MLB.com, number 41 by Baseball America, number 32 by Fangraphs, and number 27 by Baseball Prospectus. So consensus top 45 and in Baseball Prospectus top 30. In 143 and a third minor league innings last year, Quinn Matthews put up a 2.76 ERA, 2.59 FIP, and 27% strikeout minus walk rate. He pitched in all levels of the minor leagues last year, skyrocketing from low A to triple A, and he threw the most innings in double A. He threw his most innings in double A in the Texas League with 52 innings pitched. Out of 101 pitchers to throw 50 plus innings in the Texas League last year, Matthews ranked fifth in FIP and second in strikeout minus walk rate. And in terms of like the prospect grading, MLB.com grades his fastball and changeup at 60 and his slider at 55. So they seem to like his stuff pretty well. So my goal with Quinn Matthews, I don't see him getting a lot of major league innings, so I'm really just kind of digging under the surface with my goal for him. My goal would be a strikeout minus walk rate of at least 17% in 10 plus major league starts. I think he would get a spot in the starting rotation. I don't think they would move him to the bullpen. Um, unless they were somehow in the playoff race. But goal of strikeout minus walk rate of 17%. That's about 3% above the major league average. That's what I'd like to see out of him in 10 plus major league starts. Who's your Cardinals player to watch?
Before you get into that, I did some quick investigating here because something just didn't sound right. Half the teams in the Texas League don't play in Texas.
Well, I,
That's
I don't know.
because I was like, wait, the Cardinals Double A, like that's Springfield, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, and it is. The Texas League has 10 teams. The entire South Division is from Texas. It's Frisco, it's Midland, it's San Antonio, Amarillo, and Corpus Christi. So, hey, all of that clears, all of that passes, right?
Well,
Uh, but in the North Division, you have the Arkansas Travelers, you have the Springfield Cardinals, you have the Northwest Arkansas Naturals, you have the Wichita Wind Surge, and the Tulsa Drillers.
yeah. To be fair, the International League is only played in one country, so
Well, to be fair, the American League has a Canadian team.
that yeah, that is true. North American League, maybe that's the justification there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is interesting. But the fact that that half of a minor league is in Texas, I guess
Yeah.
there is justification there because I guess it would be hard to have like 10 teams all in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, for
Mm.
sure. But I mean, if it's called the Texas League, I want to see the Texas League. I don't want to see the Texas plus Arkansas plus Oklahoma plus Missouri plus Kansas League.
Yeah, anytime that Arkansas team goes in, there's all the signs that say "Don't Arkansas my Texas."
I mean, can you imagine going to a Tulsa Drillers versus Springfield Cardinals game and hearing on the PA announcer, "Welcome to this Texas League matchup between
Yeah,
these two Texas League teams."
it's like that British flag in the corner of like the New Zealand
Yeah,
flag. It's like, man,
it's not right.
you guys are colonized.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
shame.
Anyway, my Cardinals player to watch is a guy that caught my eye quite early last year, and I never really looked away, but he didn't have a full season, but I still liked what I saw out of Ivan Herrera, who is potentially going to be the Cardinals. We'll see what they do with their catcher this year because I know they like Pedro Pajes. They played him quite a lot down the stretch last year. But I really liked what Herrera showed as an offensive asset. Overall, he slashed 301, 372, 428 for an 800 OPS and 127 weighted runs created plus in 259 plate appearances last year from the catcher position. He was the only catcher in baseball with multiple base running runs above average last year. Minimum 30 opportunities. He had two base running runs, and no one else had more than two from that position. So, one of the better base running catchers in baseball. I know that isn't saying much, but hey, someone's got to be at the top of that list, right? And it was Ivan Herrera. His 30.3% line drive rate last year was tied for the seventh highest among the 343 hitters with at least 150 batted balls total. In April through May, he had a 23.2% strikeout rate and 28% whiff rate. And then from June into September, those numbers shrunk to a 17.4% strikeout rate and 21.3% whiff rate. So, I mean, we're looking at, a 6% decrease in strikeout rate and roughly similar, another 6% drop in whiff rate. 6.6% of all swings of his last year were fast swings that resulted with a batted ball in the sweet spot. So, I mean, 6.6% of the time he swung the bat, it was above 75 miles per hour and a batted ball that resulted between 8 to 32 degrees. And that was tied for the 16th highest rate among the 351 hitters with at least 400 swings total. He also made some improvements defensively. He went from -6 blocking runs from 2022 to 23 to +3 in 2024. So I would like to see him become, get more of an offensive role and kind of just continue what he's been doing offensively. 350 plate appearances and a 120 weighted runs created plus would, I think, be very fun from Ivan Herrera.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, line drive rate over 30% is
Excellent.
very fun. Very cool. On to questions. My question is, which corner infielder in their 30s will have more FWAR this season, independent of what team they play for, Nolan Arenado or Wilson Contreras?
Yeah. I mean, this is Wilson Contreras, very good hitter, has continued to be as such. Uh, I have really no idea what the defense is going to look like at first base transitioning from catcher. I think maybe the fact that he's kind of not just now, but like he's still in the relatively early stages of making the full-time transition from catcher to first base. Maybe that's encouraging for the defense. Maybe that's like a decent thing, you know. Arenado, you know, he's going to be an elite defender, even if it's still not what he used to be. The offense is still of great concern for me. And what are we talking? Are we talking better F4?
Yeah.
Talking better F4. So I mean, Nolan Arenado, as much as I feel he is clearly declining, I think we're still looking at like a 2.5 to 3 win floor for him just because the defense is that good. For Wilson Contreras, obviously it's going to take kind of exactly what he's been doing on offense. Like anything less would be a bit concerning. But he was at 140 weighted runs created plus last year, albeit only in 84 games. I would love to see him maybe get some more playing time last year. We haven't seen him play more than 130 games in a season since 2018. So I'm actually going to go with Wilson Contreras on this one. I think, you know, playing more first, playing, you know, more DH and transitioning away from the catcher position could be good for just like keeping him on the field. And I think the more playing time he gets, you know, I think he'll be a very good hitter. And yeah, I think he will produce more F4 than Arenado.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising how good his hitting stats have been over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's very sneaky. My question for you, who will lead this team in weighted runs created plus among hitters with at least 350 plate appearances?
Among hitters with at least 350 plate appearances, weighted runs created plus. So yeah, I'll look at what happened last year with that offense. Because yeah, it was a lot of like everyone was kind of around average for the most part. It
Yeah,
seemed
it's a
outside of
very weird, like they don't have the guy offensively like they used to, right? Like it used to be Goldschmidt to a certain degree. It used to be Arenado to a certain degree. I don't really know I don't know if the Cardinals have like a truly feared hitter right now. It's just a bunch of guys that are pretty good.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Part of me, the nerd in me wants to say Lars Nootbaar is going to have that year, but
Hmm.
Wilson Contreras has been too dominant, and as you mentioned, he's going to get more playing time this year. And even if does get traded, I would imagine that's in late July. And you know, at first base, you know, you can play kind of every day. So I think he'll get those 350 plate appearances. I think that OPS plus will be, you know, at the very least 120.
Hmm.
And I could see it easily being a good bit higher than that. So I'm going to say Wilson Contreras will lead in weighted runs created plus.
Sure.
So now on to the final team of team previews.
Yeah.
Talking, talking the Milwaukee Brewers, who went 93 and 69, won the National League Central, and then lost to the Mets in the National League Wild Card Series. They lost Willie Adames, Devin Williams, Wade Miley, Gary Sanchez, Colin Rea, and Hobie Milner, and they added Nestor Cortez, Mark Canha, Manuel Margot, and Tyler Alexander. Who is your Brewers player to watch?
Yeah. So for my final player to watch of this year, of what year 6 of this exercise, as crazy as that is, I'm talking about a relief pitcher that was acquired by the Brewers last year at the trade deadline, a guy that I thought was a very underrated name on the market, and I think will continue to be underrated heading into this year. It is Nick Mears, who is a right-handed reliever. They got him from Colorado last year. I think he's really solid, and I think a year in the Brewers lab could do some wondrous things. Last year, he posted a 5.93 ERA. That's right. I picked a reliever with a 6 ERA as my player to watch because he also had a 3.39 FIP and 3.31 expected ERA. Baseball Savant had him as the unluckiest pitcher in terms of discrepancies between ERA and expected ERA among the 366 qualifiers. No one was more unlucky among qualifiers than this man last year. That's according to StatCast. Nick Mears posted a 29.3% strikeout rate last year, along with a 33.1% hard hit rate, which is about 10% below league average, and a 30.4% whiff rate, which is about 4 to 5% above average. His four-seam fastball had an 11.7% pulled air rate. That's right. I'm bringing the new stuff into this episode. This dropped literally just last week. He had an 11.7% pulled air rate on his four-seamer. The league average last year on four-seamers was 15.9%, so he was 4% below the league average. His slider, his secondary pitch, it produced a 50.5% whiff rate and an 83.2 mile per hour average exit velocity. That whiff rate ranked seventh highest among the 219 pitchers with at least 200 sliders thrown. On that same list, Nick Mears' slider was the second unluckiest by expected batting average, 94 points of difference between his batting average and expected batting average on the unlucky side. He was also the sixth unluckiest in expected slugging with a 146-point discrepancy, and the second unluckiest by expected WOBA at 0.95 points below, of discrepancy. So Nick Mears had an awesome slider last year, but the results weren't as there as they should have been. Opponents hit 333 against Nick Mears. On ground balls hit below the hard hit threshold, 333 on ground balls at or below 94 miles per hour. The second highest batting average among the 447 pitchers with at least 25 ground balls hit 94 miles per hour or lower. These ground balls had an expected batting average of 184, and mind you, they ended up being 333. The 149-point discrepancy was the fourth unluckiest. I want him. The Brewers have a forever rotating door of who the closer is, right? We had Josh Hader even going back to like Corey Knebel, he was there for a minute, and then Josh Hader took over. And then after they traded Josh Hader, Devin Williams stepped up to be that guy. He's now gone. I think Nick Mears is very much in the conversation to be that random Brewers reliever that comes out and is just one of the best relievers in the league. And there's definitely some competition. I mean, I really like Trevor McGill. I like Abner Uribe. Joel Payamps could look good. Elvis Peguero could look good. But I think Nick Mears could be a guy that comes out of nowhere and takes that closer role late in the season. So simply, my goal for him is to lead all Brewers relievers in F4.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, you've been talking about him since probably like July of last
Yep.
year, maybe.
Yeah.
As someone you were interested in. Good to see him as a player to watch. My player to watch is someone who I put last year for the same team. But I feel like there's justification for putting him again. I'm talking about Garrett Mitchell,
Mm-hmm.
who yeah, he's had some bad injury luck over the last 2 years. He has only combined for 88 games played over the last 2 years, despite I think he was an opening day starter in 2023, so it's not like he was in the minors to start the year. It's just been injuries, unfortunately. But he showed some pretty good signs last year, especially in just terms of tools. In 69 games last year, just with results, he hit 255 with an 812 OPS, 11 stolen bases, a 60% extra base taken rate, which is over 15% above league average, and then also a +3 fielding run value. Mind you, it's only 69 games, and that's a cumulative stat, so that's also really good. Although his 359 BABIP indicates that his batting success is unsustainable, I am still putting him as a player to watch based on his tools. He had a 75.7 mile per hour bat speed, and out of 423 hitters with 200 plus swings last year, that ranked 20th, which is top 5%. If he qualified for the savant circles, as you might like to call them, he'd probably be 95th percentile in bat speed. He also had an 18% chase rate, and out of 361 hitters to see 400 plus pitches out of the zone last year, Mitchell had the sixth lowest chase rate, and I'm a big fan of that because not only does that mean more walks, but also you can play the count a little bit better. He's going to get into more favorable counts, 2-1, 3-1, 2-0, 3-0, which is going to serve him better pitches that he can take advantage of. He also had 95th percentile sprint speed, which contributes to both his base running and his ability to get a higher BABIP, especially as a left-handed hitter. left-handed hitters who have great speed. They're much more able to leg out infield hits that most other hitters can't, which is why they might have higher BABIPs or higher expected numbers than actual numbers. So yeah, Garrett Mitchell, he's very toolsy. Can swing very hard. I think has the potential to show a lot of power, potential to be a home run hitter, along with the potential of putting up 20, potentially 30 stolen bases. It only took him 69 games to get 11 last year, to go along with his 60% extra base taken rate. So, the goal for him is to just kind of put it together over a full season. My goal for him is to put up 3+ F4 this year, and just keep doing what he's doing at the plate, on the bases, and in the field, because I think he can really be an all around player for this team. He just hasn't had the chance to showcase it quite yet due to a little bit of bad luck going against him. So yeah, that is all of our players to watch, and now we will get on to our final questions.
Final questions of the series.
Yeah.
Aside from Freddie Peralta, which Brewers starter will have the highest F4?
Aside from Freddie Peralta, um, yeah, which Brewers starter will have the highest F4? Um, yeah, the Brewers have, despite staying somewhat successful, they've changed their identity like 3 times in the last 6 or 7 years. Because it was
Yeah.
at one point, because this is what their rotation kind of looked like in 2018 and 2019, and then all of a sudden they had like the best rotation in baseball and a bad lineup, and now their lineup's pretty good and their rotation is back to kind of being not so deep.
Mhm.
Um, the highest F4, um, I think Brandon Woodruff is supposed to like come back around
He
April.
pitched today, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, that gives me optimism. Um,
He did pitch today, 1 inning, one walk, one strikeout, no hits, no runs. So
yeah,
that would make me believe 4 batters faced.
yeah. Just the only concern with him is workload, because obviously
Yes.
hasn't he hasn't pitched very much. He didn't pitch at all last year, and he didn't pitch much the year before either.
Hmm.
Nestor Cortez had a really good year last year. Relative to normal Nestor Cortez, he had 3.1 F4, and then 2 years prior he had 3.7.
Yeah, but look what he did in the World Series, Chris. Look what he did in the
Oh yeah,
playoffs.
that does.
That really factors into how much he's going to do in the regular season for the Brewers this year.
Yeah, I do think. Yeah, I do think. Um, Shohei Ohtani will have like a 350 OPS this year based on what I saw in the World Series. Um, but yeah, I'm stalling here. I'm
Okay.
I'm thinking like how much does how many innings does Brandon Woodruff need to throw in order to do this? Um, I'm gonna say Brandon Woodruff,
Yeah.
because I think he,
Get a little crazy with it.
even if his workload isn't high, I don't know how many other, there's not a lot of workhorses on that staff, and I think there's potential that some of that staff could get replaced and maybe get taken out of the rotation.
Hmm.
Um, so why not? I like Jose Quintana, but he's not like an F4 guy necessarily, and
Yeah.
he's on the, he's in the late stages of his 30s, I believe. So, yeah, I'll say Brandon Woodruff, because he's shown the ability to be like a low threes FIP guy. Um,
Hmm.
and I could and if he manages 120, 130 innings, I could see him being top 2 in F4. On to my question. Last year, Willie Adames led the team in home runs with 32. Who will lead the Brewers in home runs this year?
I would say Jackson Chorio. I mean, I don't know if it's a fun answer or not, but I can feel more confident penciling him in for a full season's worth of games than I can Christian Yelich at this point. I know that it's not really fair to predict injuries because you really can't. Anything can happen at all, but he showed so much growth over the year last year, and I think that the power will sort of come as as we get into the second full season. So I'll go with Jackson Chorio on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Real quick before we move on, I don't know if you saw this today. So the White Sox announced their opening day starter. This is completely off topic. I don't know if you saw the news. I'm hoping you didn't. Would you like to guess who the White Sox opening day starter will be this year?
Well, it's not Joey Gallo.
No,
As you
I
probably
wanted to talk
lose.
about that too. How fun would that be? I'm kind
Uh,
of sad that Joey Gallo didn't play for the Rockies once before he gave up hitting.
yeah, no, it's
I
a
wanted to see
bummer.
that once.
Yeah, it would have been not like even if he
Just show me one mammoth home run. That's all I needed to see. Just one minimum 475-foot home run at Coors Field. I know Joey Gallo could do it, even in this stage of his career. I know he could do it once.
yeah, he'd be the first player ever to hit 40 home runs with a 80 weighted runs created plus or fewer. He'd find a
Is that
way.
true?
No, no, no. He would be that if he went to the Rockies for 1 year.
No, I mean, like, is it true no one's done that?
I would imagine no one's done that. 40 homers and 80
Like
weighted
Dante
runs.
Bichette in the like early 2000s might have done it.
Well, he just had the low WAR because his defense sucked.
Yeah, but
Right.
like the weighted runs created plus wasn't that crazy either.
I think it might
40
have
home
been.
run. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess we could check stat head on that one.
Well, yeah, on OPS
You're
plus.
probably right.
Um, Rougned Odor,
Yeah, that's another good one.
he was in the 30s and might have had it around there, but I don't think he got to 40.
He might have. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, he might have been like 36 or something. All right, I'm searching it right now. 40 home runs, 80 OPS plus or lower.
yeah.
Has it happened? It has not. You're right.
In 2017, Rougned Odor hit 30 home runs with a 63 OPS
That's so
plus.
sick. That counts.
That
That's the same thing as hitting 40 with an 80.
it's just about,
Yeah,
just not quite
it's the
as
same idea.
extreme.
Yeah,
No, that's pretty insane.
that's awesome.
Um,
That's so sick.
that does kind of kick ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that does it for all division previews this year. And
Mm-hmm.
now we will finish out our top 50 lists. Um, yeah, we will do the top 10 players in baseball. In the past two episodes, not including the bold predictions draft, we have gone through chronologically 50 through 26 and then 25 through 11. Just a review of our lists. Here is 50 through 41. There it is. On to 40 through 31.
This is a YouTube moment.
Yep. Yep. Go subscribe to Above Replacement Radio YouTube. 30 through 21 on the YouTube channel. And then 20 through 11. Feel free to pause if you want any more details. But yeah, those are our lists heading into it. We kind of know what each other's 10 are, but we don't know the order
Yeah,
unless we have a major surprise and shift it off the positional rankings. But yeah,
that would mean there'd be a major exclusion from the list entirely.
and exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, if this is a projection for 2025. This is going based off of what we think they will do in 2025. But yeah, other than that, did you want to reveal your number 10 player in baseball?
I would love to. I'm pretty happy with this top 10 and how I ranked them last year. Everyone in my top 10 was in my top 25 on last year's list. So I feel very good about how that turned out. I have how many returners do I have for my top 10 last year? I have one, two, three, four, five. So half of my players in my top five or my top 10 were also top 10 last year. So I think I had a pretty good return rate on this stage of the list. Starting at number 10, this is one of my guys in my top 10 last year, although he did fall a decent amount. He was my number 4 last year. He is just barely hanging out of the top 10 this year. Talking about Mookie Betts from the Los Angeles Dodgers, my number 5 shortstop. So I have 5 shortstops in the top 10, spoiler alert, which I would imagine I think you probably do as well, right? Yeah, you do. So yeah, I mean, shortstops run the league right now. 5 of the top 10 players, all shortstops. And there's very good reason because, yeah, I did put Mookie Betts quite boldly as my number 5 shortstop, but I did say that my ranking of him on the top 50 list would be a lot more, indicative of who I really think he is as a player than, 5 at his own position. It was a weird year for Mookie last year. He obviously started out as one of the better hitters in the league, perhaps the best hitter in the league throughout like the first few weeks of April. Cooled down a little bit, got hit by a pitch in June, missed a couple months, came back and just wasn't the same. But he still landed on a 289, 372, 491, 863 slash line. Just a very, solid offensive season, even if it's not what we're used to seeing from him. All of the strengths we know from him, he's still got them. He's still, striking out very little. He's still walking at a very, good rate. In fact, his strikeout rate actually went down to his lowest point, tied for the lowest walk or strikeout rate of his career. The walk rate was higher than the strikeout rate, which is something that I'll get into later in this breakdown. Talking about some analytics from Mookie last year, he was the only hitter to post a whiff rate below 10% and a slugging percentage above 500 against all fastballs with at least 1,000 fastballs seen. So, that's obviously the type of pitch you see the most of, and no one else whiffed below 10% and slugged above 500 against them. And that was just Mookie Betts. Over the last 3 seasons, Mookie Betts has a 2.2 run value per 100 against sinkers and sliders. That seems like a random combo, but generally speaking, that's the second and third most commonly used pitches throughout the league. And Mookie Betts had the second highest run value per 100 among the 647 hitters, with at least 150 sinkers and sliders seen total since 2022. I'm going to give you a little spoiler. Mookie Betts has seen way more than 150 sinkers and sliders over the last 3 years. He's seen about 2,500 of them. According to Fangraphs, Mookie was one of just 3 qualifiers in any season since 2002 to have more walks than strikeouts and a ground ball rate below 30%, which I thought was pretty cool. I believe the other 2 were Frank Thomas and Rafael Palmeiro. I could be wrong on that. I wish I wrote them down. However, I am dropping Mookie on this list. He's going from 4th to 10. There was a bit of a drop in offense last year, and I think one thing that you could cite was his 11.1% drop in pull rate last year, which was the 3rd steepest decrease among all qualifiers. He also had lows in barrel rate and average exit velocity since 2017. But regardless, he is still Mookie Betts, as I mentioned before. He is still a top 10 player in the league, and there's a reason, for that, many reasons for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I reveal my number 10, I forgot to talk about how we did on our top 10s last year.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of players that we had in the top 10 who ended up being top 10 in F4, I had 3. Daniel had 4. MLB Network had 3. I think Foolish Bailey also had 3. And then same thing pretty much across the board except for RA9 F4, which I only had 2, and then everyone else's numbers were the same because Jose Ramirez got scooched out. So I only had 2 with the RA9 based. But on to my number 10. It is my number 1 pitcher in baseball for 2025. It is Tarek Skubal, who is debuting on the list. I ashamedly did not have him on the list last year, despite my high hopes for him. But I did get some brownie points by picking him for Cy Young, but I did not put him on any list last year, positionally or in the top 50. But he's heading into his age 28 season. He returned from flexor tendon surgery on July 4th, 2023, and since then has put up a 2.51 ERA and 2.35 FIP in 272 and a third innings pitched. In that span, he leads all qualified starters in Major League Baseball in ERA, FIP, strikeout minus walk rate, xFIP, and SI ERA. Also, among 112 pitchers to throw 2,500 plus pitches in that span, he has the lowest expected WOBA against and the second lowest expected slugging against. I think he's very clearly been the best pitcher of the last year and a half. And since he returned from injury in 2023, he ranks 8th among all players in F4, no matter if they're a position player or pitcher. He ranks 8th. Since he returned from that surgery on July 4th, 2023. So I think he hangs in there with a lot of these position players, and I think he's the 10th best player in baseball for 2025. Who's your number 9?
Yeah, so my number 9, it is a guy that I put number 14 on my list last year. It's your guy. It is Jose Ramirez, my number one third baseman from last year, a guy that got completely screwed out of the chance to have a 40-40-40 season, which made me very sad. But regardless, he had his best season in a while last year, slash 279, 335, 537 for an 872 OPS, 39 homers, 41 stolen bases in 682 plate appearances with plus defense, with plus base running. He had a very Jose Ramirez season. I mean, the strikeout rate, was at 12%. The walk rate was at 8%, 7.9 to be exact. Didn't see, despite, going into the 30s, age 31, didn't really see a drop in average exit velocity, did not see a drop at all in barrel rate. He's still doing all the things that you love to see. Last year, his pulled air rate, as I mentioned earlier, 29.8%. The league average is 16.6%. So, and that's something that he's made, a strong suit of his throughout his career. And I'll get more into that later. But yeah, I mean, he's still one of the most dynamic players in the league, still one of the most fun players to watch in the league when he's on. And boy, was he on last season. Last year, Jose Ramirez had a 500 slugging or higher on every pitch that he saw at least 150 times. I'm talking four-seam fastballs. I'm talking changeups. I'm talking sliders. I'm talking sinkers. I'm talking curveballs. I'm talking cutters. All of them, he slugged 500 or more, which was awesome. 21.8% of all pitches he saw last year were off-speed pitches. He had one of the higher off-speed rates in the league, the fourth highest among the 122 hitters with at least 2,000 total pitches seen. And in very Jose Ramirez-like fashion, he hit off speeds, made a lot of contact on them better than most. His 17.8% whiff rate against off speeds ranked 13th lowest on that same list of 122 hitters. Since 2017, and this is more what I'm getting at, his pulled air rate is 28.1%, which is the third highest among the 194 qualifiers in the last 8 years. And by the way, when I say pulled air rate, I'm talking about the percent of fly balls that are pulled and are either line drives, fly balls, or pop-ups. It's very simple. So yeah, his pulled air rate of 28.1% is the third highest among the 194 qualifiers in the last 8 seasons. And also since 2017, Jose Ramirez has pulled 48.3% of his total batted balls, which is tied for the highest among the 255 hitters with at least 1,250 batted balls in that span. He has also pulled 39.4% of his fly balls, the highest rate of the 173 hitters with at least 400 fly balls. And because of that, you might not see a big pop on the Savant sliders. That's because when you pull the ball a lot, it decreases your expected statistics. It don't matter because Jose Ramirez knows where to place the ball. He does it exactly to the degree that he needs to suit his sort of needs. He's not the most powerful guy, but the power that he does have, he uses it very wisely. So, and that makes him, along with the solid defensive base running, one of the best hitters in the league. He is entering my top 10 this year as the number 9 player on my list.
Yeah. And I will match you on that. I have Jose Ramirez as my number 9 as well. And yeah, there's consensus.
What an honor.
Yeah. There's consensus with you. Me, also MLB Network had him at number 9, and I'm starting to think he's not underrated anymore, which is actually that's a really good thing.
That's how good his season was last year.
Yeah, true. And granted, like some of that had to do with, I think he really hit those like traditional count stat markers, and that really helped him out. And almost 40-40, and also the Guardians were really good last year, so people noticed a little bit more. But that's wonderful. Like him being rated properly is a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about like what does Dansby Swanson have to do to get rated properly? Jose Ramirez showed us.
Yeah. If Dansby Swanson can,
if he can just put up a quick 40-40,
that would be great.
Easy.
But yeah. So Jose Ramirez, he's heading into his age 32 season. He ranked 8th among all players in F4 last year, and he ranks 11th over the last 2 years. Last year, he put up a 6-year high in fly ball rate and a 3-year high in pull rate, and was rewarded with 39 home runs to tie a career high. He also stole a career high 41 bases while putting up a 65% extra base taken rate. League averages in the low 40s on that. He was at 65%. Also, he put up +3 outs above average on defense and has put up at least 3 outs above average in every non-COVID season since the stat started being tracked in 2016. That's, not including the COVID season. That's 8 years in a row of at least 3 outs above
Which, by the
average.
way, the COVID season, a year he should have won MVP.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and with Jose Ramirez, I think what makes him so great is just that consistency. He's never been, um, you know, outside of the 2020 season, he's never been top two in MVP. But he just every year you can kind of rely on him being good. His worst year in the last 4 years has been a 4.6 F WAR, I believe, which is still, all-star level. And he has put up 3 6-win seasons over the last 4 years. Only him, Juan Soto, and Shohei Ohtani, in a combined effort, both hitting and pitching, have done that. Only him, Soto, and Ohtani have had 6 wins, have had 3 6-win seasons over the last 4 years. So there's just a level of consistency with both performance and health that has to be greatly respected. And there's some guys who maybe have more WAR than him over that span, but have fluctuated a little bit, or maybe not been able to stay on the field as much. But with Jose Ramirez, he stays on the field, and not only does he stay on the field, he performs extremely well, just about every year. So yeah, he remains in the top 10. Even though he had a better year than he did the year before, he moves down my list. So people might get curious. Why he moves down the list is the 3 players that were behind him last year that were moved ahead of him this year all had 8-win seasons last year. So they were kind of in their own class, and I kind of had to reward them for that. But still, Jose Ramirez is number 9 player in baseball, by me, by you, by MLB Network. And I'm sure there's some other lists that'll also have Jose Ramirez number 9. But yeah, on to your number 8.
Yeah, my number 8, this is a guy that I might be a bit lower on than most people, and I'd say that despite putting him at number 8, clearly there's very high praise to be sung, and I will definitely sing them. But I'm talking about Gunnar Henderson, who I have in my number 8 spot this year. This is why these rankings matter, because I talk about, all of my top 10 picks are in my top 25 last year. Do you know where Gunnar Henderson was ranked on my list last year?
25.
He was ranked number 25. So I mean that what a huge ranking for me. Because I mean, if I put him 26, I think I had Marcus Semien at 26 last year. A guy that I very could have put over Gunnar Henderson. But hey, huge that, because I mean, if I, it's doesn't hit the same if I said, 9 out of 10 players are in the top 25 or all 10 are in the top 26. No, it's a very, very round number. It's unanimous. And yeah, that's enough of me talking about myself and my amazing rankings.
I put Henderson 26, so I look like the clown
Yeah,
here.
see, that's the difference right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of me talking about myself, because I got a really, really good shortstop to talk about. My number 4 shortstop in all of baseball. Obviously, it was a really solid season, especially a really solid first half for him last year. He was one of the better hitters in regards to average exit velocity, barrel rate, all of the the hard hitting numbers, literally. There are some things that I would like to see as improvements that could shoot him up into the top 5. I would like to see him, play better defense. He's had a net 0 outs above average for virtually his entire career. I would also like to see him hit fastballs better. Over the last 2 seasons, he's been virtually a net neutral on all fastballs in regards to run value, in regards to run value per 100. He's been, kind of in the middle, I guess. And that only means that there's endless praise to be sung about the way he hits breaking balls and off-speed pitches, and certainly that exists. Gunnar Henderson posted a 23 run value and 12 run value per 100 against all breaking balls in 2024. Both of them led the 255 hitters with at least 100 plate appearances ending on breaking balls. So if you're not going to hit fastballs to a great degree, you might as well be the greatest to ever hit breaking balls, and that's exactly what Gunnar Henderson was last year. He was the only qualifying hitter last year to be in the 80th percentile of expected WOBA, chase rate, and sprint speed. All 3 of those are very different aspects of offense, and he was the only one to be, that kind of elite in all 3 in that kind of sample size. One thing that I also really liked from him last year, the performance did go down a bit in the second half, but I still think that he's capable of having a full year of what his first half was. His average bat speed went from 76 miles per hour from March through June of last year to 76.6 miles per hour from July through September. For a 23-year-old that was playing in his second full big league season, I think it does mean a lot that, he was still swinging the bat as hard as ever as the season was going on. Normally I wouldn't be surprised to see like a bit of a dip in those later months when when time is going on, but the fact that he was keeping it up is awesome. Additionally, one of the big reasons for his I don't want to say breakout, but his level up in 2024 over an already very solid 2023 was his barrel rate on fly balls going from 28% in 2023 to 35.7% in 2024. This helped him go from a 28 home run hitter to 37 home run hitter. So Gunnar Henderson is remaining he's making my top 10 for the first time. He is my number 8 player.
Yeah. The whole time I was searching for my number 25 last year, because when I command F'd in parentheses 25 on my list for this year, it wasn't. So that means my 25 from last year is not on my list this year. So that means that I very well should have put Gunnar Henderson
Adolis
top 25.
Garcia.
Yeah, it's probably one of those types of players.
I don't think he was. Let me check who was in mine, and I'll throw up some guys that it could have been.
Yeah, Garcia was 38 for me. But yeah, I'll talk about my number 8, who is a different shortstop. It is Mookie Betts. You had him at number 10. I had him at number 3 last year. And he's heading into his age 32 season. He ranks 7th among all players in F4 over the last 2 years. And out of 118 qualifying hitters over the last 2 years, he ranks 6th in on-base percentage and OPS. However, his OPS plus did go from 165 to 145 from 2023 to 2024. Part of that had to do with some of the underlying stuff. His average exit velocity dropped 2.5 miles per hour, and barrel rate was cut by more than half from 2023 to 2024. Also, his bat speed dropped 2.1 miles per hour, but that partially could be explained by his shorter swing length. So maybe strategically, he wanted to make a shorter swing more compact, more contact promoting, because he did have an extremely low strikeout rate last year with an extremely high walk rate. He had 98th percentile strikeout rate and 92nd percentile walk rate, and was the only batter in baseball to be 92nd percentile or higher in both. So, his average exit velocity did go down quite a bit. Barrel rate did go down quite a bit, which is definitely going to affect the power numbers and how much he's able to get extra base hits. But in terms of, making contact and getting on base via the walk, he was excellent last year, and that provides me some optimism that he's going to be pretty offensively successful once again. And even in a down year, he put up 4.4 F4 in 116 games. And if you put that rate over a 150 game pace, Betts would have had 5.7 F4 in a down year, a year after, finishing runner up in MVP. And I'm sure he would have gotten MVP votes or ranked higher in MVP last year if he didn't run into that injury. And yeah, that 5.7 F4 that he would have accumulated in a 150 game pace, that would have ranked 13th in all of baseball last year, as I mentioned, in a down year. So I think, even though he dropped off offensively last year, it was still a 145 OPS plus. So I think he's going to be very good. We both agree he's top 10. MLB Network has him at number 5, which I think is maybe a little bit ambitious, but we shall see. I think Mookie Betts will be the 8th best player in baseball in 2025. Do you want to go through your number 7?
Yeah, at number 7, I have another guy that was in my top 10 last year. He was my number 5. Moves down a little bit, but the performance would actually suggest he should have moved down farther. But he's not, because I believe that he can be that same guy he was from 2023. I'm talking about my first round pick in this year's Springfield F4 draft. I'm talking about Corey Seager. Kind of perfect. I had the 7th overall pick. I ended up getting him at number 7 because I really wanted a shortstop with the first pick. And my top 2 shortstops were both taken. That's all right. Yeah, it was a weird year for Corey Seager. He had 533 plate appearances. 865 OPS, very solid offensive performance, great underlying numbers. We just didn't really see the results that we did from 2023. I do believe he's somewhere in the middle between the 1013 OPS that he posted in 2023 and the aforementioned 865, because he did a lot of the things correct, but just didn't get the results. Like I mentioned, a 390 expected WOBA, good for 97th percentile, over 15% barrel rate, over 92 mile per hour average exit velocity. On top of that, also a good sweet spot rate. Normally those things are kind of mutually exclusive, but while hitting the ball hard, he also had a 40% ground ball rate, only a 3.1% pop-up rate, which is actually like the remarkable part of it. Corey Seager hasn't had a pop-up rate over 5%, which is already well below league average since 2019, which is literally the worst, the worst one you can have, worst batted ball you can have. Over the last 2 years, his pulled air rate has been 18% and 19.7% respectively. Overwhelmingly the top 2% in any season of his career. His previous career high was in 2020, the pandemic year, where he put up a 15.3%. So over the last few years, or excuse me, 17.2% actually in 2022. So since joining the Rangers, he's put a lot more priority in pulling the ball in the air. Obviously, I love to see that. And he did it even more in 2024 than he did in his MVP runner-up year. Seager was the only hitter last year with a 15% barrel rate and 5 outs above average, which is, that's pretty cool. That's a defensive stat and one of the best offensive stats out there. On defense, he also had a 78% success rate, which means that 70% of the plays that he could have conceivably made, he did make, which is the highest in a season that he's had in at least 100 attempts since 2017. And by the way, 78% is like really, really good. Like I mentioned, his pulled air rate last season went to 19.7, which is a career high for him. Now, here's why I really think Corey Seager will remain, a top 10 player, despite clearly not being so last year. His pull rate on fly balls increased between 2023 to 24. His barrel rate on fly balls remained the same. His barrel rate on pulled fly balls went up. Despite this, his home run to fly ball ratio went from 26.7% to 21.8%. And that 5% difference leads you to a 150-point drop in OPS. But I think he's going to get back there this year, and he's my number 7 player in baseball.
Yeah. I figured out who it was. It was Michael Harris, who I had at number 25 last.
He was the next guy I was going to list off of my 2024 list.
Yep. He was number 25. I remember now.
Yeah. So just the guy that got hurt.
Yeah, but also he was on a rate basis, he was not going to be top 50.
No, for sure not.
But yeah, my number 7, it is our 4th match on this top 50 list. I think
that makes sense, because I think I know who you have at number 6, and also everything from there on. And I think it's only process of elimination that Corey Seager would have been 7.
Yeah, and yeah, so he's my number 7 as well, Corey Seager. He was my number 5 last year. You also had him at number 5. He is heading into his age 31 season, and out of 118 qualifying hitters over the last 2 years, he ranks 4th in slugging and 5th in OPS. Out of 256 hitters with 2,500 plus pitches seen, his expected slugging and expected WOBA both rank 6th. He also has 6.6 F4 per 650 plate appearances over the last 2 years, which is more than Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Gunnar Henderson, and Mookie Betts. That's 6.6 F4 per 650 plate appearances. So on a rate basis, he is better than some of the guys I have ahead of him. Sometimes he just has an issue with staying on the field. And then talking about last year, his OPS plus did go from 174 in 2023 to 145 in 2024. But luck had a lot to do with it, as you kind of prefaced. He had the 8th unluckiest difference in slugging and expected slugging out of 216 batters last year, despite having the highest rate of fly balls being pulled in his career. A lot of the time, the difference in actual numbers and expected numbers can be explained by hitting too many straightaway fly balls, because the expected metrics don't account for what part of the park you hit it. But Corey Seager was pulling fly balls at the highest rate of his career and still still being the eighth unluckiest out of 216 according to expected slugging. Corey Seager under the surface had a 72nd percentile strikeout rate and walk rate, 88th percentile sweet spot rate, 91st percentile average exit velocity, and was 95th percentile or higher in all expected categories, while also putting up +5 outs above average. So yeah, we're very much on the same page with Corey Seager. That's why we both have him at number 7. I think MLB
Yeah,
Network might have had him at 17, so we obviously see that vision a little bit more than MLB Network this year, and
let's see
uh,
it.
we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm kind of I did, based on what I saw with Corey Seager last year. There's nothing that made me lose faith in him. It's just ran into a little bit of bad luck. His BABIP went down a lot. I believe, and home run to fly ball ratio also went down a good bit too, despite a lot of things staying the same under the surface level. So, part of it also, every other year it seems like the baseballs change. So, last year was a less offensive year, so hopefully this year's a more offensive year, and Corey Seager will benefit more from that. But yeah, Corey Seager, my number 7. Who is your number 6?
I'm gonna go ahead and make a bold prediction, and maybe this isn't bold. I think it's a pretty clear. There's a clear vision for it, but I think you and I are gonna have the exact same top 5.
Exact same top 5 in
Yeah.
order.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see that for us too.
Yeah. I definitely know we're not gonna have the same top 6 though, because you already put my number 6 as your number 11. This is where I got a little ambitious with it. I admit that this is definitely probably my hottest take in the top 10, I would say. But I put Kyle Tucker at my number 6. I really bought into what I saw in, albeit a limited year last year, but regardless, even if it was only 339 plate appearances, it's hard for me to overlook a 289, 408, 585 for a 993. With solid defense as well. He did just about everything that I really love in a player. He upped his average exit velocity by just about 1 mile per hour. He upped his fly ball rate from 32.7% to 41.3%, while compromising by getting rid of the ground ball rate. It went from 38.6% to 27.1%. Now, do I think it's going to stay that low? No, but I think it could conceivably stay under or around 30% without taking too much. And it also didn't take from the line drive rate. He still had a 24.4% line drive rate, right around the league average. Yeah, I mean, he was on fire and pretty clearly like an MVP candidate up until the injury bug hit him for much of the rest of the season, which sucked. But I mean, a 16.5% walk rate. The swing rate went way down. He was very patient, which I really like seeing. His swing rate went from 47% to 41.8%, which is, I like seeing guys that are great hitters that, wait to get their pitches and do damage with them. And he was obviously going to a new team this year. But I still think he will be the Kyle Tucker that we know. He posted a 2.4 run value per 100 last year, overall on all pitches. That was the 4th highest among the 323 hitters with at least 200 batted balls. So yeah, the 2.4 run value, it was on batted balls, but only 3 hitters were better than that. Additionally, Kyle Tucker barreled 30.4% of his fly balls in 2024, which was the highest rate of his career. Additionally, he decreased his chase rate from 21.6% in 2023 to 17.5% in 2024, which is kind of a byproduct of decreasing his swing rate overall, was swinging at less pitches out of the zone, but he was already chasing it very little, and he did even more. Throughout the 2020s, Kyle Tucker has a 10.5 run value per 100 against all 4-seam fastballs, the second highest among the 436 hitters with at least 200 plate appearances ending on 4-seamers throughout the decade. He also did pull the ball a decent amount. He had a 41.8% pull rate, but I want you to just hear me out on this. His pull is not like the bad Wrigley kind of pull. Like, it's not down the line. He pulls to right center, if you know what I'm talking about. If you watch Kyle Tucker, if you watch his highlights, you know what I'm talking about. I don't think the ballpark change is going to decrease his value that much, if at all, even. So I really like Kyle Tucker. I really like the trade. I think going into a contract year will help him a lot, with going into free agency, seeing how Soto just, how Soto just did out there. I think he's going to be the number 6 player in baseball.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I didn't highlight him on top 50, but when I highlighted him on top as my number 3 right fielder, I said that he had more pro he yeah, he had more projected home runs in only 2 ballparks over Wrigley Field in 2024.
Hmm.
So the yeah, the pull issue is not as prevalent with him. And, if you
No,
look at if
it's
you go
not.
to
It's
his
not the Isak Paredes kind of pull.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to his Savant page and look at all the red dots which indicate the homers, it's not all down the line, and it's
No.
mostly it's mostly like right center fields,
Hmm.
near center fieldish area. But
Which
a
is where you'll get some balls that are only out at Wrigley
exactly, exactly. So yeah, he had 19 projected homers at Wrigley last year.
in
Um,
just 339 plate appearances.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So now on to my number 6. He was your number 8 this year. My number 26 last year, as I talked about. Very unfortunate. But it is Gunnar Henderson, shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles. He's heading into his age 24 season. He ranked 5th among all players in F4 last year and ranked 6th over the last 2 years. And he had major offensive improvement from 2023 to 2024, despite already doing really well in 2023. His OPS plus went from 125 to 150, 125 to 159 in those years. And he was just really, really good under the surface. There's not uh, too much detail you really need to talk about with him. He was 80th percentile or higher in walk rate and chase rate last year, was 92nd percentile or higher in all expected categories, along with bat speed, average exit velocity, and hard hit rate. And then also he went 21 for 25 on stolen bases with a 51% extra base taken rate and +3 runner runs. So he is very much a positive on the bases, along with having been one of the best hitters in baseball and being a very viable defensive shortstop to go with that. So just an all-around player. Put up 8 WAR last year. It was pretty unbelievable, and only heading into his age 24 season. So yeah, have to be optimistic about Gunnar Henderson. In both top 8 in or top 8 in both our eyes. Top 6 for me. On to your number 5.
Yeah, my number 5. He was second, I believe, in NL MVP voting last year.
Yeah.
He was my number 18 last year, which was incredibly disrespectful. I think you were closer to being correct on him than I was, if I remember correctly. Francisco Lindor, who I am so happy to see him finally get the respect that he deserves. I don't know where he was on MLB.com's list, but I mean, we've been saying it for a while. He's a much better player than people realize, and now the whole world knows it because he is my number 5. He was the MVP runner up. He's viewed as one of, if not at least definitely a top 2 or 3 shortstop in the game. And he deserves it. And it's an easy guy to root for. He obviously went through a lot of adversity early in New York, and there's no one doubting now, which is just awesome to see. Yeah, I mean, just a phenomenal, probably 99th outcome season, 99th percentile outcome season for him last year. 16 outs above average and a 13.6% barrel rate at the shortstop position, with also best of the league tier base running. There is nothing that Francisco Lindor doesn't excel at on the baseball field. He is a very dynamic hitter that can hit for average and for power. He plays probably at least some of the best shortstop in the game. Maybe only Dansby Swanson and maybe Bobby Witt Jr. play it better than him, but even then, he's a very clear captain of the infield. He's a clear leader on a team that I think has desperately needed one for a while. Even with a major offseason addition coming in, I think he's still kind of viewed as the captain of the Mets, which is just awesome. Last year, his average bat speed went from 71 miles per hour at the second half of 2023 to 72.4 miles per hour in 2024. In case you're wondering how much of a difference that makes, his fast swing rate, his rate of swings being 75 miles per hour or higher, went from 5.6% in 2023 to 19.9% in 2024. And that plays a major difference in things like barrel rate and things like pull rate, better timing, obviously. And that's, some things we saw to Lindor last year. His RV per 100 on sinkers and sliders, like I mentioned earlier, the 2 and 3 most common pitches people see. It was 2.4 last year. His previous career high before that was 1.9. So he hit guys secondaries very well last year. When they couldn't get him out on when they didn't want to throw their fastball, he hit their secondaries as well. And I say that because his hard hit rate against all fastballs last year was at 54.4%. His previous career high was 47.4%. Lastly, Lindor barreled 31.6% of his fly balls in 2024, which set a new career high. His 96 mile per hour average exit velocity on line drives was also a career high. So Francisco Lindor had an excellent season last year. Makes me very happy to be putting him as a top 5 player in the league because that's how I know the rest of the sport sees it too.
And yeah, don't feel too bad about your number 18 from last year because MLB Network had him at 25
Great
and
point.
ESPN had him at 27. So,
Wow.
um, you know, it was yeah, it was pretty rough. I had him at number 9, but don't worry, I'm gonna have some foolish takes being exposed upcoming in my top 4. But one of the ones that I got what that I got right was Francisco Lindor. I had him at number 9 last year. He's also my number 5 this
Yeah.
year. He's heading into his age 31 season, and just kind of we kind of forget about how he started the year last year. Through his first 46 games, Francisco Lindor had the second lowest BABIP out of 162 qualified
He
hitters,
did.
the third unluckiest difference in batting average and expected batting average out of 205 hitters with 500 plus pitches seen, and the sixth unluckiest difference in WOBA and expected WOBA out of 205. And it still took the first 50-50 season in baseball history for him not to win the MVP. That's how good Francisco Lindor was last year, especially in his final 105 games. In those final 105 games, he hit 309 with a 943 OPS and stole 23 bases while playing Gold Glove level defense, which earned him the highest F WAR in the National League in that span, in that 105 game span. Looking at 2024 as a whole, he's coming off career highs in OPS plus, barrel rate, expected slugging, and expected WOBA. And he was 90th percentile in barrel rate and 95th percentile in expected slugging and expected WOBA. He also posted a 3-year high in outs above average and the 8th highest defensive runs above average among all fielders last year. He was one stolen base shy of a second consecutive 30-30 season and also only got caught 4 times last year. And then on the longer term, he ranks 5th among all players in F4 over the last 2 years, and he ranks 2nd in all of baseball over the last 3 years. So yeah, Francisco Lindor has just been a really consistent player, and he is coming off a career year this year. 2024 was the best that we saw out of Francisco Lindor. And that was despite him being one of the unluckiest hitters in baseball for almost the first 2 months of the year. And he still managed to come out of it and put up 7.8 F WAR. He was great last year. I would agree that it's hard to see him do better. That's probably like a 95th percentile outcome for him. But yeah, he gets rewarded in both of our top 5s this year.
Yeah.
MLB Network had him at number 6 for 2025. So yeah, now on to the top 4, which kind of seems like the most consensus thing we've seen
I would hope
ever.
so. It'd be really embarrassing if we didn't
But in
get
terms of
it.
like even the rest of the baseball
Oh,
world,
oh yeah, yeah.
also our F4 draft, it was like that 4 was
In
like
that order. Well, actually,
in
it
that
wasn't in that order.
not in
That's a
that
lie.
order, but yeah, it
Yeah,
was
because
like
like I said, I think we have the same order for our top 5, and
yeah.
we're right on the 5th one. I am sticking in Flushing, Queens for my number 4, talking about the new New York Met, the new $765 million man, a guy that I put number 7 on this list last year and is getting moved up to number 4, Juan Soto, who answered the question, what if he made every offensive adjustment I've ever wanted to see him make in one season? last year. What an awesome treat it was, even if it came as a member of the Yankees. I've been saying for years, what if he had a ground ball rate considerably below 50%? It was 44.7%. I said, what if he pulled the ball a little more? He pulled the ball 42.3% of the time, the first time his pull rate has ever been above 40% of the season. His pulled air rate went to a previous career high of 15.1% in 2019 to 19.1% last year. It was the first time he was above league average, and he was 3.5% above it, which was awesome. I loved seeing every single thing that Juan Soto did last year. Even the defense, it wasn't great, but it was actually better than it has been in years past, even if it was still considerably below league average. But on top of that, he didn't even make any concessions, right? Like he didn't sacrifice any aspect of his offense for a better ground ball rate. He didn't sacrifice any of his offense for, a higher pull rate. He did everything that we love out of him. He took a lot of pitches, took a lot of walks, didn't strike out, hit the crap out of the ball very hard, lifted it in the air even more, like I mentioned earlier, to even better heights than he had ever done throughout his career in many respects. A 462 expected WOBA, and that's with a lot of balls, his fly balls even still going to center field. There's a lot of metrics out there suggesting he was unlucky. A 646 expected slugging, a 19.7% barrel rate, a 57% hard hit rate, an 18% chase rate, kind of in line with what he usually does, an 18.1% walk rate. Don't get fatigued by that. That is unbelievable for a guy that was 25 years old, going into free agency, playing in the biggest market that there is. Like, do not get fatigued by that. That is unbelievable, just as unbelievable as it was when he was doing similar things at age 19. Overall, last year, 23.8% of Juan Soto's swings resulted in hard hit batted balls, the highest rate among the 252 qualifiers. Additionally, he posted a 22.8% line drive rate last year, his highest since 2019, going in line with the decrease in ground ball rate. That all went to line drives. His 35.4% sweet spot rate was the highest in a season since 2019. 25% of his batted balls were pulled, still below league average, but a career high for him, which, that shows if he just does it more, look how much he could do, even if he's below league average. His 19% pulled air rate was 4% above his previous career high, like I mentioned. And additionally, Juan Soto barreled 50.8% of his fly balls in 2024. His career average going into this year was 35.5%, and he landed at 50.8%. So what an awesome season it was for Juan Soto. And unsurprisingly, it resulted in a lot of money, even if it was more money than people might have thought at any point. He is staying in New York, but going across town, and he is staying in my top 10, but moving into my top 5. He is my number 4 player for this year.
Yeah. My number 4 is also Juan Soto, but we did have a difference in opinion last year, and I ended up being wrong on him. I had him at number 14 last year, which was lower than maybe any list that I saw. And yeah, he definitely proved me wrong there for sure. Juan Soto is heading into his age 26 season. He ranked 4th among all players in F4 last year and ranks 4th over the last 2 years as well. And he's coming off career highs in wins above replacement, home runs, total bases, average exit velocity, barrel rate, and fly ball rate. And he set non-COVID season career highs in slugging, OPS plus, expected slugging, and expected WOBA. And he was top 4 in all of baseball last year in on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. He was a top 4 hitter in baseball at the very least. He was also 100th percentile in expected WOBA, expected batting average, and walk rate. And then over the last 3 years, his defensive run value has gone from -17 to -7 to -1. And I guess, the reason why I put him 14 last year was some of the concerns over defense or just lack of optimization in his offense. Like, we knew he had the tools and the amazing eye and ability to get on base, but he wasn't, he wasn't lifting the ball as much as you would have liked, or pulling the ball, as you mentioned, as much as you would have liked. But he fixed a lot of that, and that resulted in the best season of his career. So he's, last year he was an average defender, and that's, him being an average defender and putting up that level of offense is quite the luxury. And that's a lot of the reason why I think he ended up getting the money he got. I don't think he would have gotten as much money if he was at the level of defense he was at in 2022 and 2023. But he moved to like a average corner outfielder, while having the best offensive season of his career as well. And that's what made him so valuable. And that's why he moves from 14 to 4 on my list this year. And I think in a lot of years, a player of his caliber would be higher on a list like this. But because of some of the elite players that we have in the game today, he has to settle for number 4. But yeah, Juan Soto is my number 4. On to your number 3.
Yeah, my number 3. I don't know if it's my biggest dub from last year, but it's that I'm the most proud of. He was 10 last year, and putting him in the top 10 was I don't want to say controversial, but I don't think it was popular. But he is moving into my number 3 spot and very deserving. So it is Bobby Witt Jr. from the Kansas City Royals, my number 1 shortstop. And man, what an unbelievable season it was. 99th percentile batting run value, 96th percentile base running run value, 95th percentile fielding run value. Everything you can do on the diamond, Bobby Witt Jr. did with the best of them. In fact, in some cases, he was the best of them. 100th percentile sprint speed, 99th percentile outs above average, 98th percentile expected WOBA, 98th percentile expected slugging. Everything was just basically the best possible outcome that you could imagine. It was just, and it was from the start too. I mean, everything that he did was, from April through September was MVP caliber, and it was a pleasure to watch from a 24-year-old last year. Yeah, a 24-year-old that was coming off of a pretty good second half, translated it into a full season, which was just beautiful to watch. One thing we're about is his results against four seamers, which is the pitch that you obviously see the most of in most cases. His run value per 100 against four seamers has gone from negative 0.8 in 2022 to 0.3 to 1.7 in 2024. His barrel rate against four seamers also went from 11.5% to 13.8% to 22.3%. So I mean, he absolutely crushed four seamers last year. That's what I love to see. His average exit velocity on breaking balls also went from 87.1 miles per hour from 2022 to 90.3 miles per hour. His hard hit rate against them went from 3.3% to 39%. 39% might not sound like a huge number, but against breaking balls, trust me, it is. Additionally, Bobby Witt Jr. became the first player to hit 20 home runs and steal 30 bases in each of his first 3 big league seasons, joining Barry Bonds, Mike Trout, and Corbin Carroll as the only players to do so in even 2 of their first 3 seasons. He did it in all 3. Additionally, Bobby Witt Jr.'s 2024 made him one of 10 players to have a season with a 170 OPS plus or higher, 30 stolen bases or higher, or 1 plus D WAR or higher, joining Dan Brothers, Hannes Widener, Eddie Collins, Home Run Bigger, Trish Speaker, Ricky Henderson, Barry Bonds, Mike Trout, and Mookie Betts. It was an unbelievable season, and I am happy to have been right on him last year and look forward to seeing hopefully another great season. But number 3, comfortably, Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, he was certainly a big dub on your list. You probably have it there. Another big dub also probably came from your number 1, depending on which list you compared it to. Definitely mine. Um, but my number 3 this year is also Bobby Witt Jr. He was my number 19 last year. I think that's where a lot of lists had him, but Daniel jumped the gun and it worked out for him. Picked him number 10. Bobby Witt Jr. is heading into his age 25 season, and he leads all exclusive position players in F4 over the last 2 years, and he ranked 2nd last year. He led MLB in batting average last year, and he ranked 3rd in slugging and 4th in OPS. Some of the offensive improvement can be explained by some of the under the surface stuff. He increased his average exit velocity 2.0 miles per hour and barrel rate by 2.8 percentage points, and also increased his walk rate and decreased his strikeout rate. So hit the ball harder, hit more hard fly balls. and walked more, struck out less. That's a great recipe for success, and part of the reason why he was able to have a above a 170 OPS plus. He was 98th percentile or higher in all expected categories, 94th percentile in average exit velocity, and 92nd percentile in barrel rate. So along with him improving, he was elite in those categories. Uh, and then away from the bat, he was excellent as well. He ranks fourth among all fielders in defensive runs above average over the last 2 years, and he won the Gold Glove in 2024. He also ranks fifth among all players in base running runs over the last 2 years, and he had a 63% extra base taken rate last year and ranked third in all of MLB in runner runs. In 2024, from a historical perspective, he had the highest FWAR in a season for a player in their age 24 season or younger since 1956, Mickey Mantle.
Nice.
So it's been
a very famous season.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I think that was the year he won the Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been 68 years since a player age 24 or younger has had a player like Bobby Witt Jr.'s. And also something I found interesting. I think it's correct. It's hard to get a solidified thing on this, but he had the third most FWAR in any season in baseball history that did not lead the league, which is to say that in most years in baseball history, I think he'd be ranked higher than number 3 after coming off a season like that. It's just there's two more history makers that are above him, and it's just kind of unlucky for Bobby Witt Jr. that how stiff the competition is because, you know, 5-10 years ago, I think he'd be at least number 2 on a list like this after coming off a year like that. So yeah, he was unbelievable last year. He's been unbelievable pretty much since July of 2023. And he's only 25, so or only heading into his age 25 season. So the future is certainly bright. On to your number 2.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's a 24-year-old shortstop coming off a 10-win season, and there's 2 players currently in the league that are objectively better than him by virtually anyone that you ask is like absurd. And yeah, that's the state of how talented Major League Baseball is at the top right now. At my number 2, I'm talking about the guy that both of us had number 1 on this list last year. He's the best hitter in baseball. Although, there's just one thing he doesn't do, and well, it's not his fault that he doesn't do it, that he's not number 1 again on this list. I'm talking, of course, about Aaron Judge, who is, yeah, despite outperforming any season he's ever had, arguably, after being number 1 on the list, he is moving down. Not his fault. I think anyone, that knows baseball understands what we're getting at here. I would argue that his 2024 was actually better than his 22, the season where he famously hit 62 home runs. About appearances, he had a higher batting average. He had a 33-point higher on base percentage. He had a 15-point higher slugging percentage, and he had a 48-point higher OPS. So just a ridiculous, an 1159 OPS season from Aaron Judge with 58 home runs. Just an inhumane season for a guy that also slumped in April, by the way. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say about Aaron Judge that hasn't already been said before, especially on this podcast. Going into age 32, he is consistently expected to now just put up 11-win seasons all the time. Like, I don't know what's going to happen when he only puts up like an 8-win season. Like, what's that going to look like? Are people going to start freaking out? I don't know, but he's literally given us no reason to believe that regression is coming anytime soon because he still just absolutely crushes the ball to the degree of a near 27% barrel rate every year. I mean, literally, it's been 26% or higher each of the last 3 seasons, which is just absurd. But going into some more specific numbers, Aaron Judge's fly ball rate, and this is something that I've spoken on for a while. His fly ball rate went from 29.5% from 2016 to 2021 to 39% from 2022 to 24, which is, of course, when he just became the greatest hitter we've ever seen. The highest fly ball rate among the 112 hitters with at least 1,000 batted balls since 2022. That 10% increase in fly ball rate is kind of what I think led Aaron Judge to really becoming the hitter that he has been since 2022. In the StatCast era, this might be my favorite stat ever. In the StatCast era, Aaron Judge owns all of the top 5 highest average exit velocities in any season with at least 200 batted balls. The top 5 is Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge, which is hilarious. Even if it's just a 10-year sample, to be honest, it probably spans throughout all of baseball history as well, if we're being completely honest. Judge is off of his second season, posting a run value of 150 plate appearances ending against them. He's done so twice on four-seam fastballs. Only one hitter has ever done so in the time that run value cracked even once. And that was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. against four-seamers in 2021. So 3 players have ever done it since 2019. Aaron Judge is 2 of them. And lastly, Aaron Judge is coming off of his 4th season with 200 plus batted balls and a 25% barrel rate or higher. No one else in the StatCast era has done that ever. He has done it 4 times. So Aaron Judge is my number 2 player on this list. He literally did not do anything to move down from number 1 other than not pitch. And it's not his fault, but that's just how it is.
That's just how it is when you have Babe Ruth still in the league doing it. My number 2 is also Aaron Judge. He was also my number 1 last year, despite a lot of websites ranking Ronald Acuna Jr. number 1. And that was a win for us and for Foolish Bailey as well. It paid off. He was the best player in baseball last year, but I don't think he will be the best player in baseball this year because unfortunately he's not going to post up like a 3.2 ERA in 100 innings or something like that. Aaron Judge, just in terms of him being his own class of hitter, I'll break down some basic numbers. He has an 1107 OPS over the last 3 years. No other qualifying hitter has an OPS of 1,000. He's at 1107. He has 27.0 FWAR over the last 3 years. No other exclusive position player has 20. And also, he has hit 157 home runs over the last 3 years. No other player has 135. So in terms of just hitting and being an exclusive position player, which is a term that's now invented with Shohei Ohtani existing, it's just him and everybody else in terms of exclusive position players over the last 3 years. And, I say 3 years, obviously Bobby Witt Jr., he was a rookie in 2022 and, didn't have quite the year, didn't have nearly the year Aaron Judge had. But, just looking at, this is a historical 3-year run that Aaron Judge has just had, and it may be continuing this year. I mean, he's averaging over 50 home runs per year over the last 3 years. Last year, Aaron Judge joined Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Ted Williams, and Mickey Mantle as the only players in baseball history to have 2 11-win seasons in a 3-year span. So he's up there with the legends in terms of what he's doing in a 3-year span. And he's putting together seasons that only all-time greats have done. 11 wins above replacement doesn't happen all the time, and he's done it twice in the last 3 years. He's quite unbelievable. And yeah, as you mentioned, there's no reason to suggest that he will do worse this year. And in fact, his bat speed went up 0.8 miles per hour from 2023 to 2024. There doesn't seem to be any signs of him him slowing down, despite him going into his age 33 season. So yeah, just with hitters, in terms of just the art of hitting, I think it's him and everybody else. And that's why he gets the number 2 spot for me. Never mind the fact that he also plays about average defense, which is a luxury for someone who hits that well.
And will also be a
Yeah,
defensive position this year.
we'll also be moving to an easier defensive position that will probably also wear on him less in terms of health as well, moving around less in right field, especially at Yankee Stadium.
Another.
But,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to transition to your number 1. What were you going to say?
Another thing that, like, this is just an anecdote, but I think it's very relevant. One thing that I remember about the pandemic season was, with a 60-game season, there was a lot of people talking about the potential for a 400 average season, which would have an asterisk, but, hey, this might be the only chance we ever get. So, like, let's see it. I believe it was Cespedes Family Barbecue. This would be a very them thing to say. but they were like, forget a 400 average season. We could see a 200 weighted runs created plus season. Like that's something we haven't seen since Barry Bonds. Like it doesn't happen. We could see it in the pandemic, given a 60-game season. Aaron Judge has done it twice in full seasons with 696 and 704 plate appearances in seasons respectively.
Yeah, it's
Like he has
unreal.
twice been double the average hitter in full in 157 game seasons or more.
Exactly. Like he and this is no diss to Juan Soto, but Juan Soto had the best year of his career, and Aaron Judge was still about 3.1 wins above replacement above him. He was like one Brendan Donovan above Juan Soto, if that makes sense. Uh, and Brendan Donovan had a pretty good season last year.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's
Both made both of our top 10 seconds lists.
yes, indeed. But yeah, enough of Aaron Judge. You know, we're losing our Red Sox our
Who
Red Sox
else?
fan card.
There's got to be some other ones. There's got to be some other good examples. Who are some guys that were around the 3 mark? Adley Rutschman had 2.8 last year. Christian Walker had 3 F4.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, he was a Christian Walker above Juan Soto.
yeah, I did recognize when I said Brendan Donovan. A lot of people might not know he actually did well last year.
Yeah,
He was a Fernando Tatis Jr.
that's a good one.
above Juan
That's a good one.
Soto,
Yeah,
roughly. Tatis had 3.2. I think the difference between Judge and Soto was 3.1. So
yeah.
yeah, roughly one Tatis
So
better than
so
Soto.
yeah, Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis just barely combined to have more F4 than Aaron Judge last year. Like
Yeah.
just barely.
Yeah, and you know, Juan Soto's number 4 on this list and Tatis is 25 for both of us. Shout
Yeah.
out. But yeah, now
Yes, I think we did
uh,
agree on him.
on to the number 1 player in baseball.
Yeah, I mean Michael Lorenzen, the two-way player. What more can you say? No. Um, yeah, it's Shohei Ohtani. There's no I don't what am I supposed to do like some sort of grand reveal? We all know who it is. Um,
Yeah.
the first 50-50 season, but also it was 54 and he almost had a 55-55 season. That was like very much in the cards. Um, yeah, 731 plate appearances, by the way, and a 1036 OPS. Like that's another part of it that I don't think should be lost on people is the fact that he had something like I think did he have the most plate appearances in the National League? I think he did.
Very possibly.
If it wasn't at the top, he was up there. Yeah, he had the second most plate appearances in all of baseball, the most in the National League, and put up a 181 weighted runs created plus. I talked about Bobby Witt Jr. being like the dub that I think Shohei Ohtani my biggest dub from last year. Had him around like number 9. Foolish Bailey had him around the same place. I said no. You know what? DH only. I'm still putting him number 3. I think he's that good offensively, and he was. Without pitching, he had literally the third highest F4 of any player in Major League Baseball last year. One of the few guys in my top 50 where his placement on my list actually perfectly represented where they ranked in F4 last year. So that was pretty cool. I don't really know what else to say that hasn't been said. I mean, it's literally the most covered guy in baseball, one of the most covered athletes in all of sports. I mean, around the globe, maybe the most covered athlete outside of soccer. Ohtani had a 95.6 average exit velocity on all breaking balls and off speed pitches last year, the highest among the 486 seasons in the StatCast era, with at least 1,000 breaking balls and off speed pitches seen. Not just the best in 2024, the best since it's been tracked. He increased his pull rate from 37% to 43.6% between 2023 to 24, which set a new career high for him. He also increased his pull rate on fly balls from 22.2% to 29.3% between 2023 and 24. And he increased his pulled air rate from 14.8% to 22.5%. So, even like when he hit the ball hard, he was distributing it a lot better. and that led to the 54 home run season. 43.2% of batted balls by Ohtani last year were blasts, which means it was a fast swing that was also squared up, which means it was a 75-mile-per-hour swing that reached the 80th percentile possible average exit velocity, given the bat speed and the pitch speed. So 43.2% of his batted balls were blasts, the highest rate among the 87 hitters with at least 400 batted balls. And by the way, all this is offensive stats because that was all he did last year. But he also pitches, believe it or not. I don't think anyone ever talks about this. In 2023, he was the only qualified starting pitcher to rank in the 90th percentile or higher in K rate and in average exit velocity. Like I said, I don't really know what there's to say. Hasn't already been said, so I will leave the audience with this: do not become fatigued. Like I know it's very easy to become Ohtani fatigued. We're on year 5 of this. He's been, the most covered player and the posted about it all time. People think it's an overdone thing. I understand the urge to become Ohtani fatigued. You don't like the ownership, the whatever. Even if you don't like the deferrals, even if you are, even if you think that he was involved with the eBay scandal, do not become Ohtani fatigued, because whenever the next time is that we see a two-way player come into the Ohtani has set the bar so impossibly high. And if you have a chance, try to go back and look at some analysis of Ohtani from when he entered the league. And people saying, well, what if he was a 3.5 win player and a 3.5 win pitcher? How much do you pay that guy? He is infinitely better than that. He was a 9-win DH last year. Didn't play defense, didn't pitch, and he was a 9-win player. If we see a guy come into the league as a two-way player and be, I don't know, and be like Lawrence Butler as a hitter and Kevin Gausman as a pitcher, you're going to be like, okay, like, I don't care. That's not cool. That's because Ohtani made it so much cooler than it was ever supposed to be. Don't become fatigued. Enjoy this while we have it. We don't know how much longer he's going to be pitching for, given the fact that he's coming off of his second elbow surgery this year. Please, 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 I beg you, enjoy this while we have it, because you really, really don't know how long it's going to be. And you're going to look back and be like, how did that ever happen? Because truly, it is this unprecedented. It's so unprecedented, we don't even really understand it yet, because we're going to go through so many years of baseball history with no one being a two-way player to this degree.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, very, very well said, because yeah, whenever this does end, we're gonna really, really miss it, because there's nothing like this. And as we've talked about before, like Babe Ruth didn't do this. He was in 1919, he did it for one season, and he was an average pitcher. People point out the 3.5 whatever ERA. That was bad in that time frame. Shohei Ohtani is great at both, and we've seen that especially at the plate with him getting more opportunities. Yeah, my number one is also Shohei Ohtani. It might have cut off on the recording, but Daniel did have him at number 3 last year. Definitely was a win, as you mentioned. Foolish Bailey had him at 9. I had him at 12 because I figured, he's not pitching, and I figured that offense would come back to earth a little bit, but his offense got even better last year. MLB Network had him at 4, so good on them for getting that right.
So credit to MLB. Did you not hear it when I said that?
No, it came through, but some words might have gotten cut off a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, so number 1, Shohei Ohtani, he was my number 12 last year, ashamedly. But he leads all players in home runs over the last 2 years. He also pitches. He leads all players in offensive runs above average over the last 2 years. He also pitches. He ranks second in OPS and slugging among 118 qualifiers over the last 2 years, and he also pitches. And along with hitting, he ranks fourth in stolen bases and base running run value over the last 2 years. He also pitches. He put up the only 50-50 season in baseball history last year, and he also pitches. He became the only player to steal 55 plus bases while being caught fewer than 5 times. And that was while he led the National League in home runs, on base percentage, slugging, and OPS. He also pitches. I mentioned he also pitches. In the 3 years leading up to the injury that took him off the mound last year, he averaged 143 innings, a 2.84 ERA, 3.23 FIP, and 151 ERA plus in those 3 years. In those 3 years, he ranked 11th among pitchers in pitching F WAR and 6th in pitching B WAR. And among 57 pitchers with 400 plus innings in that span, he ranked third in ERA, eighth in FIP, sixth in strikeout minus walk rate, and second in strikeout rate. So, along with being I would say a top 2 hitter in the game over the last 2 years, he's probably a top 10 pitcher in the game too, at least certainly on a rate basis. And according to B WAR, which is based on run prevention, he was the sixth best pitcher in baseball in that 3 year span where he was pitching. So yeah, I mean, it can't really be emphasized enough. And yeah, as you mentioned, like he gets covered a lot, but not only have we not seen anything like this, like I don't know the last time, it's been since the steroid era, at least since we've seen a better player, or better seasons. And in terms of like a 4 year span, best we've seen since, roided up Bonds at least. And then
Yeah.
best 4 year span, best 4 year span we've seen out of someone hitting, um, involving someone hitting since, I don't know,
Pools.
I'd say better than Pujols. Like
Yeah.
in terms
Like that's
of,
that's
and I'm not saying exclusive hitting, I'm saying like in terms of what Otani's
overall
doing,
offensive profile. Yeah.
in terms of offense, stolen bases, and then also the fact that he's pitching in terms of a 4 year span.
It literally might be Bonzo 1-04.
Yeah, it might be that. That's it. And then like, Walter Johnson, 1912 to 1915, if we're going to count that because of how many innings he threw. But yeah, in terms of like integration, like it's one of the greatest. It's probably the best clean 4 year span of all time. And it's keeping going. And I don't think there's any signs of him really slowing down that much. I think we talked about, you mentioned last year that like him, he doesn't steal as much when he pitches on purpose. Like I don't think we'd expect as many stolen bases, but yeah, even if he puts up, a 170 OPS plus and, a 140 ERA plus, he's probably going to be the best player in baseball. And that's
Yeah.
kind of conservative for Shohei Ohtani at this point.
I would love, and I don't know how many years he has to continue to this for this to happen. He has 9 years left on his contract. I would love for there to be a GOAT conversation because I think we're not that far off from it. Right? Like we can't be.
Yeah, for sure, especially considering that, in football,
Like he has to, I think. Go ahead.
in football, it was talked about a guy who's been in the league or who's been starting in the league for 7 years. So, in a lot of people's minds, you don't have to, accumulate over a long period of time to be considered the greatest of all time. So yeah, I think that's certainly a discussion to be
Yeah,
had.
but like, not that this really matters in baseball, but if we're gonna have GOAT debates, like he has the ring now, like he won a World Series, he's won a World Baseball Classic, which like to some players, especially from other countries, like that means even more than a World Series. They don't win the World Series without his home run against the Padres in Game 1 last year. That's a thing that people easily forget about, but it's true. They literally don't win it without that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is an issue because, the GOAT debate in baseball is so layered and there's so much history and
Mhm.
the game has evolved
And
so much.
it also like your GOAT debate like factors in so many different things, and it's also like an underlying tell of your other takes. Like it's ultimately, what are your thoughts on steroids? And if you're cool with them, your goat's probably Barry Bonds. If you're not, it's probably Babe Ruth. It might be Ted Williams. It might be Willie Mays. It might be Hank Aaron. It might be Josh Gibson. It might be someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no,
Right.
it's a very yeah, it's a very layered conversation, and um, you know, people talk about
Mhm.
people talk about like, oh yeah, well, Babe Ruth wouldn't be able to play in today's game, and but I think
Nobody.
Barry Bonds would also have more difficulty in today's game as well, and
Mhm.
also the fact is today's game is drug tested, so he wouldn't be able to have that 0-1 to 0-4 run
Yeah, he
that
would have
would
been
be as
stuck with
dominant.
his near 100 WAR pre 98.
Yeah, yeah,
He would
exactly.
have been stuck with his other three MVPs that should have been a lot more.
Yeah, true. Um, but yeah, there's definitely a conversation to be had. Um, but yeah, do we want to review our 10 through 1?
Yes, I would love to. At number 10, I had Mookie Betts. Number 9, Jose Ramirez. Number 8, Gunnar Henderson. Number 7, Corey Seager. Number 6, Kyle Tucker. Number 5, Francisco Lindor. Number 4, Juan Soto. Number 3, Bobby Witt Jr. Number 2, Aaron Judge. And number 1, Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, my number 10 was Tarek Skubal. My number 9, Jose Ramirez. Number 8, Mookie Betts. Number 7, Corey Seager. Number 6, Gunnar Henderson. Number 5, Francisco Lindor. Number 4, Juan Soto. Number 3, Bobby Witt Jr. Number 2, Aaron Judge. And number 1, Shohei Ohtani. I believe 9
Yeah.
matches for us in the
18%
top
of our
50.
list in agreement. Pretty good. Which, I mean, I don't know. I think matching our top 5 was pretty much a lock.
Yeah,
Like
true.
it was very, to me, it was very clear who the top 5 was. Like I started my list, like the first day that I made my list, I only went through my top 5, and I was like, yeah, I don't see how I could have any objections to this.
Yeah, right. Um, Yeah, like especially considering we've done the positional lists already, so I already knew that you had
Hmm.
Lindor above Henderson and Seager.
Right.
Whereas, I think some people might have Henderson above Lindor because Henderson had a little bit more F4 last year. Um, and he also went fifth in our F4 draft. But yeah, no, it made sense. And I think the top four for a lot of lists are going to be the exact same
Yeah.
with maybe a little bit of variance within the order, but still, I think MLB Network we've already
I
seen.
think the clear top 4 in some order is those 4, like without any question.
Yeah,
I would even
yeah,
top 5, but I'm sure people will put, Henderson above Lindor, whatever.
yeah, yeah. It Yeah, people might choose to be wrong about Lindor, but MLB Network, to their credit, put him six.
Yeah. Which, hey, cool.
Put Betts five, which was interesting. But he's always an MVP contender.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, that is our top 50 list. That's everything for the off season outside of predictions. And next week we will get into them, and then
Ooh.
it's the start of the year.
Yes, it
Wonderful,
is.
wonderful stuff. So yeah, now, yeah, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out all the guest playlists, or check out the guest playlist on there. We've had Mark Simon on 4 times. We've recently had Anthony Castrovintz on from MLB.com. We had Matt Brash on, reliever from the Mariners. Also, Foolish Bailey, Chris Rose, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, and Jeff Passan from back in 2020, but pretty evergreen interviews no matter what. So feel free to check that out. Also check out, the playlist with the positional rankings and all that. And if you're curious about what we ranked 50 through 11, check out the previous couple episodes for that. Also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Deonta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Kern, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be predicting the standings, awards, and playoff results for 2025.
This conversation is over.
Is over.